Chapter 201. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. In fact, it's just hiding, not leaving. Love go little say. When Luochio saw the change of Yu Hua's body, he didn't look too surprised. It was the first time he bought the ability to synchronize individual thoughts from the club. It wasn't simply buying a person's past information, but thoroughly understanding a person's thoughts. Such an expense was naturally much more expensive than buying past information. But some people could spend a lot of money for their hobby. Luochio could naturally ignore the loss of lifespan because of the anger in his heart. Fortunately, he hasn't reached the point of despair. Looking at the little change of Yu Hua, Luochio said indifferently, "This guy is the buyer of the batch of goods that Michael Club hid here. He has the secret medicine of Michael Club, which can strengthen the body in a short time. It should be something like the secret medicine used by King Kong. In a short time, it shouldn't be a complete product." Yu Yi thought for a while and said. Luochio nodded and said, "But it's enough for people who have seen its power to treat it as a life-saving thing. It's because he still hides such things that he feels he still has a chance to turn the tables. Otherwise, I won't be so relaxed. But Uncle Yi came here, it seems that they have contacted each other earlier." Luochio shook his head. "Forget it, since he's here, he's here. After all, Uncle Yi is more suitable for Sister Xiaochun's share." Yu Yi just smiled slightly. She understood what Luochio meant by not so relaxed. Yu Hua had an almost obsessive desire for revenge. This person's paranoid thoughts could easily lead to the arrival of the club's transaction mechanism. Now it didn't appear for a long time, naturally because this guy hadn't reached the point of despair yet. Miss Maid retreated behind Luochio. On the one hand, she didn't intend to block her master's sight. On the other hand, she naturally hoped her master could be close to see the next fierce battle. She could feel that Luochio's anger had calmed down a little, but she did not think that her master would let it go so easily. It was only because the master's father was not the only one who was insulted. There was another. The anger from the destruction of Miss Cochin's grave should naturally be resolved by Mr. Yi Yen. The people who grew up in this country regarded filial piety as extremely important. What's more, because of Yu Hua's behavior, the door appeared on its owner in advance. It could be seen how strong the new owner's emotional impact was. The origin gate had appeared ahead of time. Yu Yi slightly thought, "Although I still can't forgive Yu Hua for what he did, I should say thank you to him for angering the new master." When Yi Yen and Sir Ma Ma Haud arrived at the cemetery, they both frowned at the same time. The two of them saw a bare-chested man kneeling on the ground with his hands covering his face, as well as his exposed, terrifying muscles that were filled with a sense of power. The weird man in front of them stood up slowly. Sir Ma directly said in a low voice, "Who are you? What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" Yu Hua glanced at the two. His voice became much lower than usual. "Yi Yen, Ma Haud, both of you are here. Just in time. I'll kill both of you at the same time, no need to waste time. After killing all of you, the next target will be that damned bastard." Yi Yen frowned. "Do I know you?" Yu Hua sneered. "What, you can find this place, haven't you thought of something? Have you forgotten how the jade lock dug out from the dead land was sent to you? It's you." Yi Yen narrowed his eyes, his tone was full of anger. Yu Hua laughed. "Are you angry? But not only that, do you know why you're so unlucky recently? I'll tell you. From the time you broke that place 2 months ago, you have been falling into my control step by step." After the secret medicine entered his body, Yu Hua not only got a strong physical ability, but also a constant sense of excitement and pleasure. He couldn't help saying everything in front of Yi Yen. Looking at Yi Yan's angry and resentful expression, Yu Hua felt that it was the most wonderful thing in the world. He looked at Yi Yen, mocking him. "Why do you think you could easily find the clues of the dirty things those stinky policemen had done in that hideout? Do you really think someone was so careless? If I didn't arrange it on purpose, do you think you could find it? Ha ha, is it painful? 4 years ago, you got a great achievement because of that case, and then you started to have a meteoric rise. But 4 years later, you became the target of both legal and illegal forces, like a rat crossing the street. Look at you now. How down and out, how ridiculous! Yi Yen didn't say anything. A love go little say, Netko. However, Officer Ma angrily defended his brother. F***ck. Who the F***ck do you think you are? What did my brother do to you? Why do you treat him like this? You're a F***king beast, you don't even let go of a dead person's grave. Yu Hua snorted, not only Yi Yen. And you, pighead. Ma Haud, let me tell you, my name is Yu Hua. I'm Yu Jingda's son. Not only you too. And those people who acted together with you 4 years ago, even your family, I don't want to let any of them go. Sir Ma gave a start. Yi Yen also slightly opened his mouth, looking at Yu Hua in a completely different way. What the F***ck? Your father killed so many innocent people 4 years ago. I heard that he died in prison 1 year ago. He was so happy that he got drunk that night. Ma Haud snorted, but I didn't have enough fun. Today I'll have a good time. Yu Hua suddenly sneered. You? You were just a coward who hid on the side and got some merits in the end? Saying this, Yu Hua suddenly jumped up, crossing a distance of more than 3 meters, rushing to the front of Ma Haud, raising his fist and punching towards Sir Ma's face. Watch out. Yi Yen pushed Ma Haud away in the crisis, grabbing Yu Hua's arm, suddenly twisting his body sideways and kicking his waist with his knee. The ribs on his waist were very fragile and could be easily broken by such an attack. However, Yu Hua seemed to be fine, standing there motionlessly. Yi Yen couldn't help turning pale with fright. He suddenly thought of another guy, King Kong. That guy was the same. His body seemed to be made of iron. Yi Yan's mind raced, but he didn't stop. He exerted all his strength and hit Yu Hua's chin with his palm. At the same time, he bent his other arm and hit Yu Hua's collarbone under his throat with his elbow. This change of movement was fierce and fast. Unexpectedly, Yu Hua seemed to be fine, lowering his head, sneering, I planned to have a good fight with you, but now it's not necessary. This is the power I inherited from my martial uncle after I killed him. If I knew he was hiding such a thing, I wouldn't have humph. Go to hell. A heavy punch came down. Yi Yen clenched his fists in front of him, but his whole body flew out as if he was hit by a car. This kind of inhuman strength was too horrible. Feeling his arms were numb, Yi Yen looked at Yu Hua with astonishment. He saw Yu Hua with a teasing smile, walking towards him step by step like teasing a mouse. Baji? Just like this? Sure enough, you must have used some dishonorable means to defeat my father. Yi Yen didn't speak, just slightly moving his center of gravity down. Bang! But at this moment, a loud sound came from Yu Hua's back, a gunshot. Yu Hua's body staggered, directly kneeling down on the ground. His leg was penetrated by a bullet. F***ck. Ma Haud, who was in the distance, cursed, Do you think I'm a coward who came out of nowhere to make a living? Back then, I was playing with a Barrett M82A1, and I was playing support? Although Sir Ma had gained some weight in his middle age, and his belly was above the belt, he still looked majestic with a pistol in one arm. Humph! I'll kill you first. At this time, Yu Hua suddenly stood up from the ground. The bleeding calf didn't seem to be an obstacle to him. His action was still as fast as before. Sir Ma was shocked, shooting several times at Yu Hua's leg and shoulder, but he couldn't stop him at all. This guy was like a monster who didn't fear pain. Sir Ma gritted his teeth, pointing the gun at Yu Hua's forehead. But at this moment, Yu Hua suddenly lowered his body, rushing to Ma Haud like a cat, and easily knocked him down on the ground. You could have killed me the first time. Yu Hua sneered disdainfully, but you policemen are idiots. You only think about catching people. You stick to those creeds, and that's why you die. Seeing Yu Hua's terrifying fist, Yi Yan knew that Ma Haod couldn't bear such a heavy blow, so he suddenly said, "Yu Jingda is a loser." Yu Hua stopped at once, grabbing the gun from Ma Haod's hand and squeezing the pistol into a ball. He threw Ma Haod into the air and threw him to the ground. "What did you say? Dare you to say it again?" "I can say it as many times as I want." Yi Yan sneered. "He's indeed a loser, or else how could he be defeated by me? Eagle claw? Chicken feet? I'll break your mouth first." Yu Hua's eyes turned red, rushing to Yi Yan without saying anything. This body didn't fear pain, and had endless strength. After a few moves, Yi Yan was pressed to the ground by Yu Hua as if he had lost the power to resist. He grabbed Yi Yan's neck and grinned. "I noticed that you seem to be injured, so I plan to give you 3 more days to recuperate. After that, you can fight with me for real. But now, there's no need for that. Do you have anything to say before you die?" Yi Yan squeezed out some words from his throat. "You are right." At this moment, Yi Yan suddenly waved his hand, and a cold light shot towards Yu Hua's eyes. Yu Hua instinctively turned his head to avoid it. But at this moment, Yi Yan's hand quickly swept over Yu Hua's wrist. Yu Hua, who couldn't feel the pain, was furious. When he wanted to crush the opponent's throat, he found that his hands had no strength. Yi Yan, who was pressed down, twisted his body crazily, rolling aside, and at the same time, his hand swept over Yu Hua's ankle. Yu Hua was even more furious. When he was about to chase him, he suddenly knelt on the ground, unable to stand up. He turned pale with fright. What did you do to me?" Yi Yan touched his neck, coughing twice, and then said with a hoarse voice, "You're right, it's not glorious for me to defeat your father, because I'm best at using knives." He turned his hand over, and there was a small dagger between his thumb, "especially this kind of knife. The sharpest." Yu Hua suddenly understood. His tendons in his arms and legs had been completely severed in that instant just now. Yu Hua was frightened, crazily moving his body. His tendons had been cut off, so he could only crawl. Yi Yan walked over quickly, and the knife in his hand directly pierced into Yu Hua's shoulder and knee, completely sealing his ability to move. Chapter 202. Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Ma Haod got up from the ground, shaking his head to make the dizziness go away. He then walked towards Yi Yan. "Yi Yan, are you okay?" "I'm okay, I won't die." Yi Yan spat out a mouthful of blood. The 2 middle-aged men looked at each other, seeing the familiar smile on each other's face. Sir Ma stretched out his fist, so did Yi Yan. 3 years later, the old men's fists once again gently touched each other's fists. "What's wrong with this guy?" Officer Ma frowned and looked at Yu Hua, who was lying on the ground. Yu Hua's body suddenly twitched, and he kept spitting out white foam. His unusually strong muscles shriveled up little by little. Yi Yan squatted down to feel Yu Hua's pulse. "It's very weak, but it won't kill him immediately. Maybe he used some special drugs like hormones or stimulants before. It seems that he had experienced something before we came here. Maybe he just guessed that you would come here in advance." Ma Haod said with lingering fear. "I've lived long enough to see such a thing. This guy was like a wild beast just now." "Old Yi, did this guy just mention that he was the one who set you up?" Yi Yan thought for a while, searching Yu Hua's pants. He simply found a phone and a wallet. Yi Yan recalled the second time when he was rescued by someone. Although he couldn't see the person's face clearly, he was obviously thinner than Yu Hua. And from the conversation with Yu Hua, it could be seen that he wasn't the one who rescued him. Then, who on earth rescued him? "Brother, can you do me a favor?" Yi Yan suddenly asked. Ma Haod patted his chest, saying nothing. Yi Yan looked at Yu Hua, who was lying on the ground. "Don't let him die, and don't let others know that he is in our hands. He may be my chance to turn the tables." Sir Ma nodded. "I know a barefoot doctor." Yi Yan nodded. The 2 men hurriedly lifted up Yu Hua, who was in a coma. Before leaving, They glanced at the tombstone and said with one voice, "Brother, we'll drink liquor with you next time." "Master, Mr. Yi and Officer Ma have left the cemetery with Yu Hua." When Yu Yi returned to the tombstone, she saw her master sweeping the surrounding soil with a broom. A fight had just taken place here, and there were many traces left behind. Even the tombstone was a little dirty. "Got it." The two didn't talk. Luo Qiu cleaned the tombstone silently, waiting for the dawn to break. Jessica and King Kong stood in front of a tablet at the same time. On the screen, they could only see a man's chin. It was so dark that they couldn't see anything else. "A love go shao say W Chu," that man said indifferently. "King Kong, this is the second time you've lost someone. I really doubt your ability." King Kong lowered his head, not saying a word. Not only was he depressed, but he was also extremely angry. But that was indeed the case, but he was obviously unwilling to be reprimanded by the higher-ups. King Kong suddenly said, "Mr. Sun, I think it's strange. Only Jessica and I know about this place. She just went out and someone came to save him. I think it's a coincidence." Saying this, he even squinted at Jessica, who was beside him. Jessica didn't move, just like a statue. The man on the screen suddenly raised his voice. "Enough, Jessica won't betray us. Don't find excuses for your negligence. Think about it with your brain. She has exposed herself in front of Yi Yan. It's even more impossible for her to let him go. It's not good for her at all." King Kong also knew what was going on. But he was suddenly restrained by this woman, so he couldn't think straight. He frowned. "I'll find him as soon as possible. And the guy who saved him, I'll find him as well." "Jessica, besides you, is there anyone else from your side who came here secretly? According to the previous intelligence, there seems to be someone in your organization who has been helping Yi Yan secretly. His contact?" Jessica shook her head, saying with uncertainty, "I haven't received any news yet, but I can't rule out the possibility that someone is acting secretly. I'm not in the headquarters, so I can't get hold of some things immediately." That man kept silent for a while and said, "And the mysterious person saved Yi Yan. It's an uncontrollable variable. King Kong, inform the buyer to deliver the goods in advance, and let them prepare. Jessica will be in charge of this transaction." "Yes." He wasn't very willing, but he could only agree calmly. When it was almost dawn, Sir Ma finally let out a sigh of relief and sat down. Yi Yan was bandaging his arm beside him. It was upstairs of an indoor traditional Chinese medicine pharmacy. An old traditional Chinese medicine doctor lived here. The old traditional Chinese medicine doctor washed his hands at this time, pulling the curtain aside and walking out. "Officer Ma, the master's life is saved. I've also taken out the bullet. But he lost too much blood, so I'm afraid he won't wake up so soon. In addition, his tendons in his hands and legs, as well as some important joints, have been damaged. I suggest you send him to the hospital as soon as possible for him to undergo surgery. Otherwise, I'm afraid he'll be permanently disabled. The person who did this is too vicious." Sir Ma didn't dare to say that the person who did this was actually sitting beside him. He coughed slightly. "I'll have a plan. It's better for this guy to be disabled, or I don't know how many innocent people will be hurt." The old traditional Chinese medicine doctor didn't say anything. "I'm going to decoct the medicine, you two take your time to talk." Yi Yan suddenly asked, "Sir, can I use that computer?" "Oh, you can use it." Yi Yan nodded, walking to the front of the computer. He found the data cable on the table, quickly connecting it to Yu Hua's mobile phone, and then started to work. "Brother, what are you doing?" Cracking the password of Yu Hua's mobile phone. Yi Yan looked attentive. "Since he's the buyer's man, I'm afraid there will be a lot of clues in it. I just saw a new message, I want to see the complete content." Ma Hao blinked, picking up the mobile phone, swiping it randomly. "This mobile phone isn't locked?" Yi Yan furrowed his brows. He took the mobile phone. He took a look at it just now, it was obviously locked with a password. "It's strange. but he still clicked on the interface of the message. Content: 8:30 tomorrow evening, the underground parking lot of Caesar Commercial City, A105, wearing a black cap, deliver the goods in advance, be careful. Deliver the goods in advance, Yi Yen said with a heavy tone. Deliver the goods in advance. Ma Haud showed a smile on his face. Yi Yen emphasized, wearing a black cap. Ma Haud smiled. It's very likely that Yu Hua and the seller haven't met. Chapter 203. A genius will remember love in 1 second divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Yes, he hasn't arrived yet. A love go little Sagnet W. Chuba, don't worry, I've arranged for someone to lock him up once he appears. Don't worry, don't worry. Really? How dare I? When have I ever lied to you? Okay, I'm going to have a meeting, that's all. Sir Ma wiped off his cold sweat and turned off the phone. Facing Yi Yen, he spat out his grievances. To be honest, I'd rather be bombarded by those baldies in the police station than face this girl's questioning. This girl, was she a mouse in her previous life? She can sniff out problems from everything. Yi Yen patted Ma Haud's shoulder with a thank you for your hard work expression. At this moment, Ma Haud patted Yi Yan's palm. Bro, last time you said you didn't want to burden me, so you knocked me out. This time, you're not in a position to say anything, right? I'm involved in this muddy water. Maybe we really need to use the police force here. Yi Yen said helplessly, whether it's King Kong or, they all know me. I can't be there for tonight's handover. Ma Haud nodded. Don't worry, I've arranged for someone. If King Kong hadn't been interrogated by me because of a previous case, I'd be there myself this time no matter what. TSK, I haven't been involved in such a big case for a long time, I can't control myself anymore. Anyway, let's end it tonight. Yi Yen took a deep breath. He closed his eyes. From now on, he would conserve his energy. 1 year ago. Germany, Luxembourg. Do I look weird in this dress? Jessica fiddled with the long dress on her body unnaturally. Compared to her unnaturalness, Yi Yen looked quite elegant in his formal attire. Seeing that Yi Yen just glanced back and forth in the banquet, Jessica frowned. I really regret listening to your suggestion. In fact, there was no need to disguise as a guest to sneak in here. I can adapt to it as well. Yi Yen took 2 glasses of champagne from the tray of an adapter and gave one to Jessica. The adapter's degree of freedom is not enough. Could it be that you feel like you're about to be outdone by the female guests here? Is that the jealousy of a woman? Jessica sneered. I just feel that if something happens to this kind of high heels, it'll just be a hindrance to our movement. Yi Yen smiled and said, actually, it's still very beautiful. Don't worry, you should believe in your own beauty. Jessica replied indifferently, thank you. The target has appeared. Yi Yen stood in front of Jessica and blocked her view. This guy is very alert. Don't look at him first. Get closer to him later. Jessica said unhappily, don't treat me as a newbie who just left school. I know what to do. Besides, you're the newbie who's being guided by me. At this moment, the music sounded. It was a waltz. All of a sudden, Yi Yen grabbed Jessica's hand and put it on his shoulder. What do you want to do? Of course, to get closer to the target. Yi Yen said softly, don't worry, I won't step on you. Or rather, I'm more afraid of being stepped on by you. Jessica glared at Yi Yen fiercely but didn't know what to say, let alone turn against him on the spot. She told herself that it was just to get closer to the target. She and Yi Yen hovered among the guests who invited them to dance, getting closer to the target bit by bit. Under the blurred lights, the sweet waltz and the slow dance steps, Jessica, who couldn't remember the last time she danced, suddenly felt a little absent-minded. It's not bad. Jessica looked at Yi Yan's eyes and said. Though Yi Yan's sight was always on Jessica, she could feel that his eyes were wandering around, paying attention to every passerby. He led her to the target in an orderly way without leaving any trace. I used to have a dance partner, Yi Yen said casually. She knew that he had some sad memories in the past, so she didn't continue to talk about it. She began to size up the man in front of her seriously. He was mature and calm, but his eyes were always gloomy. Even though they had cooperated for 2 years, she didn't feel that she really understood his heart. Jessica felt that Yi Yan's eyes were telling a story at this moment. His black and white eyes were totally different from the eyes of the Westerners, but at this moment it was like a fatal magic power to her. Her body hovered in the dance steps, but she couldn't get away from the sight of his eyes. She could even see her own reflection in his eyes. Yi Yan's face was getting closer to her. Jessica stood on tiptoe out of instinct. Just like the kissing fish that met in the sea, they would eventually overlap, during the time of this mission. The throbbing from the heart made Jessica forget everything in an instant. Just as they were about to overlap, Yi Yan suddenly stopped and apologetically said, "Sir, I'm sorry." It turned out that the 2 people who had stopped just happened to bump into another pair of guests who were dancing toward them. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't help kissing my partner, so I stopped. I hope you don't mind." "It's nothing." The man smiled and praised, "Such a beautiful partner, if it were me, I would do the same." As if it was just a small interlude, the man continued to lead his partner away. Jessica took a deep breath, suppressing the strange throbbing in her heart. She heard Yi Yan whispering with his head down, "The tracker is installed." "Is that so?" Jessica lowered her head, "Then let's go out first." Jessica opened her eyes after a short nap as her head suddenly became heavy. She touched her lips subconsciously. It was a dream, but also a memory of the past. There was a glass of red wine beside the sofa. Jessica looked at the light red liquid in the glass. She took off the necklace on her neck, fiddling with it gently between her fingers. The phone rang at this moment. It was King Kong. "I've arranged it, you can come over now. Mr. Sun asked you to be in charge of this transaction." "Got it. When the time comes, I'll be at the appointed place." After hanging up the phone, Jessica looked at the time, 4:21 p.m. She took a deep breath, but there was a lingering fear and uneasiness in her heart. She wasn't sure what would happen next except for tonight. With a heavy heart, she changed her clothes casually. She didn't go back to the apartment she rented. Last time, Ren Xiling's inquiry made her vigilant, so she chose to rent a hotel nearby. There was no one in the elevator, it was empty. Jessica walked in. The moment the door of the elevator closed slowly, she held her arms tightly and took a step back. As if she had just entered a cage, she couldn't see the surroundings clearly and couldn't see the road ahead. There was no road ahead. This feeling came from her thoughts and her will. Ding! She arrived at the first floor. The moment the elevator door opened, Jessica saw an old pine wooden door. She hesitated for a while, then pushed the door and walked in. It was still that strange place, that dark spot that never changed, and all kinds of strange decorations placed around it. Everything made her feel a sense of dread. "Miss, you're here again." Chapter 204. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Jessica asked for a pen, 2 pieces of white paper and 2 envelopes from the club. She lowered her head and started to write something. In Luocio's eyes, she was much more cautious than the last time when she came in, sat down and made such a small request. There were all kinds of customers with different personalities and behaviors. This was probably the reason why Luocio had a strange sense of expectation for new customers every time. Jessica finished writing quickly. She put the paper into the envelope and took a deep breath. She didn't ask why a beautiful servant girl appeared this time instead of the weird old man last time. She suppressed her curiosity about this mysterious place. All she needed to know was that as long as she was able to pay a sufficient price, she would be able to buy what she wanted no matter what. Jessica sat in front of the boss and pushed out the envelope. She said slowly, "I don't know the price, but it shouldn't be high. I need you to open these 2 envelopes after sunrise tomorrow." It's not necessary to do such a small thing. Luochu shook his head. Since it's the customer's request, we won't read the letter before sunrise. We can promise you that. Jessica said, No, I don't believe in any verbal promise. Since we have to complete the transaction fee here, this is the first thing I want to buy today. I see. Luochu said indifferently, How about the total time between now and sunrise tomorrow as the transaction fee? Jessica gave a start but didn't say anything. She nodded. After signing the contract for the first time today, she seemed to feel a little relieved. Then she said, Please open it if I don't take them back before 6 o'clock tomorrow. I have something I really want to do. Sorry, we don't accept this request. Luochu said after a moment of silence, because if we can't negotiate face-to-face, we can't confirm the customer's request and whether the customer has enough transaction fee. He picked up the envelope. For example, what is written inside is far beyond what you can pay for. Even if we read it, we won't do anything. Therefore, we suggest that you do not make such a designation, because the customer may not be able to get what they want. Unexpectedly, Jessica seemed to have already thought about it. She said something shocking. I'll use my soul as collateral to carry out the transaction in the first letter first. But if that's not enough, then please carry out the second letter. That is, I will pay the full transaction fee in advance. If the contents of the second letter also exceed the value of the transaction fee, then please calculate and fulfill a portion of the contents of the second letter. But if I collect these 2 letters before sunrise tomorrow, then I need to get my mortgage back. But don't worry, I'm not toying with you, because I can use a part of my lifespan as a service fee for this process. After a moment of silence, Luochu said, Customer, you don't even know if the transaction fee is enough, and you don't even know to what extent we will achieve. Are you willing to use your soul as collateral? This is a huge gamble, please think carefully. Love go little say netwaku because once the contract is signed, there's no room for regret. Jessica said seriously, No. I believe that you will complete the contents of the second letter. Luochu frowned. He suddenly had an impulse to read the contents of the second letter. But due to the spirit of the contract, he had to wait until sunrise tomorrow to open the 2 letters. Jessica left, but if she didn't show up before sunrise tomorrow, according to the second contract, her soul would be drawn out directly. The club had always paid first and received later, or made a direct transaction in an instant transaction. It was Luochu's first time to do this kind of transaction where the transaction fee was paid in advance and the degree of completion was calculated according to the value of the goods. But this was the customer's request, which didn't violate the club's transaction rules. Master, the things are ready. When Luochu was pondering, Yu Yi came to him with a tray in both hands. The tray was covered with a white cloth. Luochu lifted the white cloth and touched the things inside. He revealed a faint smile. In a nanny van not far from the commercial city, Sir Ma was cautiously instructing the young policeman in front of him. The young patrol officer seemed to be a little nervous because Officer Ma was putting on a tracking device and a bulletproof vest for him. Listen, you're the smartest one in my team, I believe you can do a good job. Ma Hao exhorted, but don't force yourself. If anything goes wrong, leave immediately. The case can be investigated again. If the prisoner is lost, you can catch him again. But if you lose your life, you will lose your life. The young police officer took a deep breath and nodded silently. Ma Hao continued, Once the thing is exposed, I'll ask someone to show up immediately. Remember to stay calm and don't give yourself away. It's better not to talk about unnecessary things with the other party. Focus on this transaction. Understood. The young police officer nodded. He tidied up his uniform and put on a black baseball cap. He was about to open the car door when he saw Zhang Heng. Sir Ma suddenly stopped him. Wait, you put this on. Officer Ma, this is not your. It was a pistol that was sent over. Ma Hao smiled. This guy has been with me for a long time. I've been relying on it for so many years. The young policeman nodded and quickly put away the pistol. He saluted to Ma Howd and quickly got off the car. Bro, relax. Yi Yen patted Ma Howd's shoulder and said, I'm not nervous. Ma Howd wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Do I look like a nervous person? Yi Yen grabbed Ma Howd's shoulder with force. Then, let's get to work. Okay. Sir Ma took a deep breath and put on the monitoring headphones. At the same time, he said into the microphone, All units, listen to my orders at any time. 8:20 p.m. The young patrol officer walked slowly in the underground parking lot. He pressed down on the black baseball cap he was wearing, lowered his head, and gradually walked towards the designated location. At the designated spot, he only saw a black Santana, but there was no one in the car and no footsteps around. Time passed by little by little. The young policeman frowned and suddenly began to check the ordinary black Santana. He walked around the car, and then suddenly crouched down and began to check the area of the car. Not long after, the young police officer found a bag stuck to the chassis in the rear wheels territory. After he opened the bag, he found a mobile phone and a car key inside. 8:30 p.m. The phone rang. I'm here, where are you? Don't be nervous, you just need to follow my instructions. I hope you don't blame us for being too careful. A woman's voice came from the phone. Say it. The young policeman followed Sir Ma's instructions and said briefly. Chapter 205. Genius 1 second. Remember love/go/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. They started to instruct our people to take action. It seems that they are very cautious. Ma Howd took off one of his earphones, looking at Yi Yen and frowning. Follow or not? Follow. Yi Yen said decisively. At this point, there's no reason not to follow. Brother, I want a map. In the Santana, the young police officer said to the phone, I've driven into Sunset Boulevard. Turn around before entering the tunnel. I've already turned around. Very good. Then you go to the Ring Expressway and come out at the first toll station. Get off now. Do you see the bus stop next to it? Take the first bus that comes here. Get off and walk to the pedestrian bridge in front. Nearly an hour had passed since they drove out of the underground parking lot. The young police officer, who was quite familiar with this city, couldn't help but think, in this 1.5 hours, Sir Ma's deployment had been disrupted. It seemed that the other side was too cautious. I've already walked to the pedestrian bridge. Very good, you face the direction of Zhongnan Boulevard. I'll start counting down from 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, you jump down. 5, 4. Even without giving any time for the undercover young police officer to consider, the woman on the other side of the phone had already started counting down. 3, 2, 1. The young police officer gritted his teeth, climbing up the guardrail at once. After taking a deep breath, he directly jumped down from here. At this time, a huge roll-on vehicle was driving over the pedestrian bridge from the other side. The young police officer, who jumped down from the pedestrian bridge, fell into the roll-on vehicle at once. In the upper position of the roll-on vehicle, the young police officer secretly wiped his cold sweat, looking around clearly. This was a roll-on vehicle transporting a car. He picked up the phone again, sticking it to his ear, and said with a trace of anger, do you have the heart to do this business? I'm really sorry. Forgive us for having to be so careful. Because the sky eye in this city is more powerful. Whether it's you or us, we may have been exposed. You're saying that you've been exposed? The young officer suddenly asked. I'm only saying that it's possible. All right, now please throw away the phone in your hand. Of course, throw away the phone on you as well. Done. Please go to the end of the upper level and climb down. We're at the last car on the second level. The young police officer quickly made his way to the back of the rolling truck and climbed into a small white car. He saw a man and a woman here. The man sat in the driver's seat while the woman sat in the back seat. Your cautiousness infuriates me. Jessica sized him up casually and said indifferently, "Please fasten your seatbelt." The young police officer couldn't help but frown. But at this moment, the car suddenly started to move backward, breaking through the guardrail behind the rolling car and landing on the road. After a bumpy ride, the white car had already driven into the side road, and then into the small road in the city. "Where's the goods?" The young police officer frowned and asked. King Kong, who was driving the car in front, chuckled. "You'll see it soon. Don't worry, I'll give you the car later." "Where's the money?" The young police officer took out a small electronic key from his clothes. "Give me the goods and I'll give you the money." "No problem." King Kong whistled, licking his lips. "Sit tight." At this moment, Jessica suddenly gave the young police officer a long black cloth. "Lastly, please cover your eyes. Do you believe that I'll terminate this deal at any time?" Jessica looked at his extremely dissatisfied eyes, saying indifferently, "You know, as the buyer and the seller, this is our first deal. The last time we were abroad, we were interrupted by the Interpol. It happened too suddenly, so as the seller, we have to be more careful. So, if you really want to complete this first deal, please cooperate with us. Of course, you can terminate it, but you have to remember that you can't find better goods than us. Don't worry, we just want to complete this deal, we won't do anything to you." The young police officer could only cover his eyes silently. The signal is cut off. In the nanny van on the road, Sir Ma threw down the earphone in his hand, biting it. F***CK. "Did we get exposed?" Yi Yen said calmly. "Not necessarily. They're just being careful. Jessica is an elite from the Interpol, she should have some interference equipment with her. I'm afraid they're afraid of being betrayed, so they're being careful." Sir Ma said anxiously, "We've lost contact, so we can't confirm the safety of the operatives. He's in danger of being exposed at any time. The key is that we don't know what happened after he jumped off the overpass." Yi Yen put his hands in his hair, closing his eyes. Time passed by little. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth, shouting, "Get off, I'll drive." The car stopped, and the young police officer finally heard the order to take off the black cloth. He first looked around. It seemed that he had entered another parking lot. After getting off, King Kong opened the trunk of the car. There was a brand new license plate inside. King Kong smiled. "Are you relieved now? We're well prepared. You can put on the license plate and go anywhere you want. Of course, you don't have to drive." "Where's the goods?" King Kong said indifferently. "Follow me." King Kong walked in front and Jessica walked behind. They sandwiched the young police officer in the middle. They went up from the lift in the parking lot to the second floor. "Love Go Shao Say, W. Chu." The young police officer checked the floor. 27 floors. There weren't many buildings with 27 floors in this city. He suddenly hugged his hands tightly and tapped his fingers lightly on his waist. Walking out of the lift, King Kong led them to the door of a room, the monitoring room. King Kong knocked on the door. Soon after, the door to the control room opened. When the security guard came out and saw King Kong, he seemed very surprised. But before he could say anything, his mouth was covered by King Kong. Then, King Kong punched his abdomen, and the security guard fell to the ground directly. King Kong walked to the control panel of the monitoring room, erasing all the records from the parking lot. Then, he turned around. He looked at Jessica. "Let's deal with this security guard later. I worked in this company not long ago, so he knows me. Don't worry, I'll handle it well." This was Great Xia, where Heaven's Shadow Entertainment Company was located. Jessica nodded. She took out a laptop, plugging in the network cable of this place. Then, she aimed the screen at herself. Soon, a man with only half of his chin exposed appeared on the screen. "Are you the one sent by General Bassoon to make the deal? You're the only one?" The man with only half of his chin exposed asked directly. "Aren't there only two of you?" That man nodded. After a moment of silence, he said slowly, "Jessica, you did a good job this time. I saw the whole process from catching that guy to commanding this operation. I admire your ability. King Kong, take out the goods. Yes. King Kong walked to the bottom of the surveillance screen and started to open the bottom panel. Not long after, he took out packets of blue powder and a leather bag from the large cabinet of the combination screen. Jessica opened her mouth. So the goods have been hidden here all along. King Kong said indifferently, I used to be a bodyguard here, and also a part-time security supervisor. It's best to put them here, where I can be guarded for free every day. Of course, there are still at least 2 months before the next maintenance. King Kong took out the bags together with the goods, spreading them out, 28 kilograms of high purity. Do you want to check them? But I have to remind you, try not to take too much, or we won't have the obligation to help you if it's too high. The young police officer took the bags and pretended to look at them. How could he know whether they were real or not? Have you finished checking them? We're trustworthy, we can't cheat you, King Kong said impatiently. Okay, no problem. Then let's make a deal. King Kong logged into an overseas bank account on the laptop. The young policeman looked at King Kong and then at Jessica behind him. He could only walk to the laptop step by step, taking out the electronic key and inserting it into the laptop slowly. He squinted his eyes slowly, putting his hands on his waist with his back facing the 2 policemen. Bang! All of a sudden, a loud sound reverberated in the monitoring room. The young policeman felt a piercing pain from his back. Then he fell to the ground directly. Jessica, what are you doing? King Kong was stunned and then became furious. Unexpectedly, the second shot also hit him directly in the chest. You actually. King Kong opened his eyes wide, looking at King Kong unbelievably. He knelt down and fell to the ground. Putting down the pistol in her hand silently, Jessica looked at the screen of the laptop coldly. The man in the screen didn't seem to be in a hurry. He just rested his chin on his hands. I really don't understand why you betrayed us only now. You're the one we've trained since childhood, so it's impossible for you to betray us. Jessica took a deep breath. Mr. Sun, let's make a deal. Let's hear it. Jessica grabbed a small package of blue powder. It's not easy to refine this kind of thing. A small package is worth a lot. I think Michael Clubb won't throw it away so easily, right? Interesting, go on. I want to break away from you, Jessica said slowly. She even looked at the man's reaction on the screen. But he didn't seem to be moved at all, but I know this probably won't happen. So I changed my request. I want you to send my mother safely to the headquarters of the Interpol before sunrise tomorrow. If you don't agree, I'll destroy these things now. Are you really going to betray us? The man said indifferently, maybe you're just confused for a moment. I even think you might have misunderstood something. We're not controlling your mother, but providing her with an ideal world to live in. In that utopian place, there was no fighting, no sorrow, and no hatred. Everyone lived happily. The man's voice became gentle. Jessica, you have to know that it's heaven. Only those who are chosen by God can live in the heaven. Your mother can live in this heaven because of you. Why do you want her to go back to this realistic hell? Jessica, you're the one chosen by God. You're the apostle who will bring a new order to this world. This is your mission. Have you forgotten what you believe in? The man's voice seemed to carry endless magic. Jessica took a step back and revealed a painful expression. She held her forehead and tried to open her eyes. Jessica, you're the best. You're our outstanding warrior, our child and the most loyal supporter of our belief, aren't you? Stop talking. All of a sudden, Jessica pulled the trigger on the pistol in her hand and shot randomly at the monitor. She panted and said, "Send my mother out of here safely before sunrise. Otherwise, I'll destroy these goods immediately. That's all I ask for." The man seemed to sigh. "Is it because of Yi Yen? It seems that the mortal's feelings have made you degenerate. Jessica, you used to be the child we thought highly of, but now you've been contaminated. Get rid of those who have been contaminated." The screen turned off automatically and the man disappeared. Jessica felt a terrifying sense of crisis invading her whole body. She turned around instinctively, only to see that King Kong had stood up. The bullet wound on his chest was still glaring. Blood even dyed his clothes red, but he didn't seem to feel any pain. King Kong twisted his neck and showed a grim smile. "I hope you can endure more than your old lover." Jessica raised the pistol in her hand calmly. However, King Kong suddenly tore off his clothes and threw them at the other party. The moment her line of sight was blocked, King Kong was already in front of her at lightning speed. He directly chopped her arm with his hand. It was as if her arm was broken. The sharp pain made her drop the pistol on the ground. Jessica gritted her teeth and quickly took out a small round box from her belt. She opened it with force. A strong white light filled the entire monitoring room in an instant. King Kong lost his sight. "Ah! Ha!" King Kong waved his hands angrily. All he heard was the sound of the commotion. When he regained his vision, Jessica had obviously escaped from the surveillance room. King Kong gritted his teeth and quickly looked at the screen in the monitoring room, looking for the other party. Soon, King Kong sneered, "Since you want to kill, then you can't escape." He then quickly left the monitoring room. The young policeman moved his body suddenly. He got up from the ground and undid his clothes. Finally, he took off the bulletproof vest. Looking at the bullet marks on the back of the vest, the young policeman heaved a sigh of relief. He stood up and loosened the muscles on his neck, muttering, "So this is the feeling of being a spy. It's quite exciting." At the same time, the young policeman touched his face and slowly took off a thin layer of cloth, revealing his original appearance. It was a handmade genuine leather mask from the club's servant girl. Chapter 206. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. It was extremely heavy to carry a big bag of goods on her back. 28 kilograms was especially heavy for a woman's body, especially when she was running. A love go little say, Moreover, one of Jessica's arms was chopped by King Kong. It was probably fractured. But she had successfully taken the elevator down to the parking lot. Fortunately, King Kong had given the key to the buyer in advance to show his sincerity. When the mini flash grenade exploded, she successfully took the key from the buyer. It didn't take long for her to escape and get into the white car. Of course, it could be faster, but she had to throw away the goods on hand as a prerequisite. She couldn't do that. This was the only bargaining chip she had with the organization. The car engine started abruptly. Jessica stepped on the accelerator and ran wildly in the parking lot. But when she was about to reach the exit, she had to stop. The gate of the parking lot was closed. If the car rushed through directly, it would be scrapped. She didn't even think that she could come out unscathed under such an impact. Jessica could only choose to reverse the car. But at this moment, the car couldn't move anymore. The rear-wheel drive car tilted at this moment. Jessica saw King Kong from the rearview mirror in fright. He lifted the rear end of the car with his bare hands. King Kong, who was at the back, let out a sudden roar. His bulging muscles exerted a tremendous amount of strength. He actually flipped the mid-sized sedan over. The sky and earth were spinning. When Jessica felt her body turning upside down, she also felt the roof of the car pressing down on her. Flipping up and down, the thin roof of the heavy car collapsed at once. Jessica climbed out of the car crazily. But her left leg was stuck in the seat. She couldn't get out completely. "I've told you I've been working here for some time. Do you really think you can escape from me?" King Kong walked to Jessica and sneered. "I'll give you 5 seconds to say your last words." 5 seconds wasn't a long time. But it was enough for Jessica to have a strong thought. Following this strong thought, the young club boss had arrived. Like a ghost, Luochio appeared behind King Kong. He slowly raised Sir Ma's gun and aimed it at King Kong's back. Just as Luochio was about to pull the trigger, he suddenly lowered the pistol and turned around to hide behind a pillar. What followed was a deafening sound. Bang! This loud noise came too suddenly. The gate in front of them was changing shape at a terrifying speed. In an instant, a huge object broke through it. Like a giant beast, it was a nanny van that had been completely deformed. The nanny van crashed into King Kong's body and sent him flying. He rolled on the ground and stopped moving after a few rolls. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. At this moment, the door of the nanny van was kicked open and a figure ran out quickly. It was Yi Yen and, of course, Sir Ma, who was in a mess because of the huge impact. Sir Ma shook his head with stars in his eyes. "Bro, can you tell me in advance next time?" Officer Ma seemed to have lost his direction and his footsteps were messy. As for Yi Yen, who rushed out of the nanny van, he had already rushed to Jessica's side and dragged her out of the van. "Why are you?" Jessica looked at him blankly. Yi Yen pressed on the bleeding part of Jessica's leg and said quickly, "I found the tracker you left in the unit you rented. The signal kept pointing here, so I came here immediately." Jessica moved her lips, lowered her head and said softly, You believed me in the end. I'm sorry." Yi Yen took a deep breath and said, "I should have found it earlier. You said those words when you gave me the gun in the apartment that day. Actually, you didn't mention what happened 3 years ago. In addition, when you injected me with the drug, you used a product from a few years ago. Now, you don't need to use the latest product at all. Just now, when you were making the transaction, you deliberately made the buyer take such a long time. It seemed very cautious, but I kept feeling that you were stalling for time. You were hoping that I would be able to find you. Even the person who saved me was very likely to be you. You've guessed everything. I'm sorry, the people in the club are monitoring my every move. If I don't catch you..." Jessica smiled bitterly and shook her head. She sighed. "I saved you just to let them feel the danger. A potential enemy will disrupt their plan. So, this transaction was brought forward." Yi Yen frowned. "Why did you do so much? What's your purpose? Or do you intend to seize this batch of goods by yourself and deal with the whole Michael Club by yourself?" Jessica shook her head and lowered her head. She didn't look at Yi Yen, saying faintly, "I'm not as beautiful as you think. I did it for myself. I didn't even expect you to find the clues I left for you at the beginning. I just did it as an insurance measure. If I failed, you might be able to find my dead body and even this batch of goods." "You? Who are you?" "Me." Jessica looked at Yi Yen, saying sadly, "I'm just..." At this moment, Officer Ma suddenly said hurriedly, "Old Yi, it's not the time for you to talk about love now. Damn, we seem to have met a monster again." It was King Kong who was sent flying by the nanny van that broke through the door. At some point, he had already stood up, and the muscles on his body were starting to move. "Yi Yen, Jessica." King Kong glanced at the 3 people in front of him. "And Officer Ma? Very good, all the hindrances are here. I'll just kill them all at once." Ma Hao said in a low voice, "Don't make unnecessary struggles. This place will be surrounded soon, you can't run away." And King Kong frowned, "And what?" Ma Hao directly stretched his hand to his back. "And this time I'll shoot your head with the first shot." But when Officer Ma was about to take out his gun habitually, he found nothing. He had given his gun to the undercover young police officer. This was awkward. "What do you use to shoot my head?" King Kong sneered. "Let me shoot your head." He drew his hand from the belt on his back, revealing a very dark pistol. King Kong loaded the gun. "I like to shoot when it's one-on-one. But when there are many people, I like to shoot them one by one." King Kong pulled the trigger abruptly, but his finger couldn't pull the trigger fully. The bullet was jammed. The probability of this kind of pistol being jammed was almost 0. King Kong didn't have time to think about why the bullet was jammed at this moment. Just at this moment, a cold light suddenly shot out from Yi Yan's palm, hitting his wrist precisely. The pistol was thrown away from his hand. Yi Yan ran towards King Kong at this moment. His hand slid in front of King Kong's face quickly. He retreated continuously. King Kong glanced at his chest. There was a cut on his shirt, and the skin inside had been slightly cut open. King Kong wiped some blood on his lips, sneering, "It seems that you didn't use your skills last time." Yi Yan sneered, "I have a lot of skills. For example, I'm very good at the maintenance of guns. There won't be any jammed bullet." King Kong narrowed his eyes. He sneered, swinging his palms quickly, then clenching them into fists, putting them in front of himself. His legs were also making quick little hop. He's modified with the secret medicine of the club. His motor skills are not at the level of a normal person. Jessica reminded him quickly. Yi Yan put down his hands, saying indifferently, "I've met the same guy. I know how to deal with him." He took a deep breath. His tense body rushed forward at once. Both of them started to fight very quickly. King Kong seemed to be afraid of the sharp knife in Yi Yan's hand, while Yi Yan tried his best to avoid a direct confrontation with him. Old Yi can't beat him. Sir Ma could only be anxious at the side. He knew too well that even with Yi Yan's skills, he could only retreat and fight at the same time in front of King Kong. He was afraid that he would be KO'd if he went up. "Sir Ma! Sir Ma!" Suddenly, Sir Ma heard a familiar voice. He saw the young police officer running towards him, panting, "Sir Ma, I'm sorry. I failed." Officer Ma didn't care whether he succeeded or failed at this moment. Seeing the young man who was sent out as a spy came back safe and sound, he was so happy in his heart. Ma Howd asked directly, "Where's my gun?" The young police officer took out the hidden gun in a hurry. Ma Howd took it, and kissed the gun body hard at once. Ma Howd pointed with one arm, shouting, "Yi Yan! Kneel down!" Hearing the voice, Yi Yan suddenly shivered, and his body instantly bent down. Bang 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 bang! The sound of 4 bullets shooting out of the gun was particularly loud in this underground parking lot. Sir Ma crazily shot 4 bullets without any deviation, directly hitting King Kong's knees and elbows. Seeing King Kong kneel down in anger and fear, Yi Yan quickly flipped over in front of King Kong and went to his back. The knife in his hand quickly pierced into the end of King Kong's spine, and then he pulled out the knife. Like lightning, he quickly wiped King Kong's ankle. "Ah!" King Kong screamed miserably, and was pressed to the ground by Yi Yan. Unable to use his strength, King Kong's face was pressed to the ground. He struggled crazily, but he couldn't get out. Sir Ma blew at the muzzle and said excitedly, "I told you! I'm the sharpshooter in the station." Yi Yan didn't look at Ma Howd, but reached out his hand and gave him a thumbs up. "You're still young. Officer Ma is really great." The young police officer smiled faintly. He smiled sincerely, and there was a warm current flowing in his heart. It was him now, but a few years ago, 10 years ago, when his father was still alive, his father, Ma Howd, and Yi Yan lived such a life. Chapter 207. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Sir Ma walked to Yi Yan quickly, taking out handcuffs and putting them on King Kong's hands. "A love go little say ku, you can't escape even if you have wings. You'd better cooperate with us." King Kong sneered and moved aside. He didn't intend to talk at all. At this time, a police car drove in quickly, followed by 2 more cars. Those fully armed police officers ran out of the police car with guns in both hands. "Sir Ma! Sir Ma! Little brats, do you always come out only after you're done? How can you be a policeman?" Officer Ma said unhappily. "But you're also a policeman." But the scolded police officers didn't dare to say anything. They just caught King Kong, who had been subdued silently. Yi Yan had walked to the side. He came to the place where Jessica's car had overturned. But here, he couldn't see Jessica. Yi Yan raised his head and looked at the underground parking lot blankly. He saw the young man who was sent out as a spy. He grabbed his arm subconsciously, asking nervously, "Where's the lady just now?" "I don't know. I didn't see her," the young police officer answered blankly. Yi Yen let go of him and took 2 steps back. His gaze once again scanned the surroundings. He put his palm on his lips. Jessica? 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 He walked out of the parking lot quickly along the gate, looking for her while shouting. Luocio took off the mask on his face. At the corner of the parking lot, a group of police officers were dealing with the scene. Miss Maid was beside him. As for the person who was supposed to be a spy in this operation, he was sitting on the ground. Yu Ye's finger had been poking the forehead of the main character for some time. Finally, Miss Maid withdrew her finger. She looked at Luocio and said softly, "Master, when he wakes up, this gentleman will feel like he has experienced everything just now." Luocio nodded. He looked at Yi Yen, who was leaning on the minivan, not far away. After a while, he said, "Let's go, it's okay now." Jessica came to a small alley not far from the building. It took almost all of her strength to travel this distance, but she still managed to bring the goods out. After taking several deep breaths, Jessica took out her phone. Very soon, the call was connected, but there was no response. Jessica said slowly, "Mr. Sun, since you received my call, you should know that King Kong has failed." Mr. Sun said calmly, "Dear Jessica, judging from your voice, you don't seem to be in a good condition." Jessica said, "I'm fine, at least that batch of goods is still in my hands. There are no more of your men here. You should be able to continue the deal between you and me, right?" Mr. Sun suddenly said, "No, no, no, Jessica, I don't even care about the goods now. I care about you. Jessica, you're indeed the child that we've nurtured and one of the best believers. Since King Kong has failed in your hands, it's enough to prove your excellence. Jessica, you're just confused for a moment, aren't you? Our arms will always be open for you. Cut the crap. I still have the same request. You must send my mother to the headquarters of the criminal police before sunrise. Otherwise, I'll pour all the goods into the sewer." "Child, you've really let us down." The Mr. Sun on the other end of the phone sighed. "It's time for you to return to our embrace and listen to our beliefs again." A strange sound came from the other side of the phone. Jessica held her head abruptly. A horrible ear-piercing sound was ringing crazily in her mind. She fell to the ground painfully. The voice was still ringing. "Jessica, tell me, who are you?" "I'm Jessica. I'm the most loyal believer of Michael Club." "No, no, no. I'm Jessica, no. Jessica, how long has it been since you listened to the gospel of our Lord? Child, you've been out for too long. The temptations in this world have blinded your heart. Child, remember who you are." I'm Jessica stopped, looking at a loss. She picked up the phone slowly. Although there seemed to be a faint struggle in her eyes, her consciousness was slowly being replaced by something. Jessica tried hard to control her body, but the words that came out from her mouth were not what she wanted to say. "I'm the child of our Lord. I'm a believer of our Lord. Who could save me? Yes, you're our child. Everything about you, including your thoughts, should exist for our great Lord. Yes. Now, child, tell me your location. I'll send someone to collect the goods, and of course, you too. Don't worry, you'll meet your mother in heaven very soon." Meet what Mr. Sun didn't know was that the phone in Jessica's hand was taken away by someone. Feeling that Jessica's answer was not perfect, Mr. Sun continued, "Jessica, good child, tell me your location now." "Well, you're that Mr. Sun? Oh, one of the Mr. Sun?" It wasn't Jessica's voice, but another voice that Mr. Sun had never heard before. He frowned, but didn't panic. Instead, he asked calmly, "Who are you? Who are you?" This question seemed to be the most frequently asked by the club's new boss in the past 2 months. The club boss who appeared in the box looked at Jessica, who was sitting on the ground. Noticing the trace of struggle hidden in her eyes, he answered the person on the other end of the phone in a more peaceful tone. "Me? I'm just a businessman. For now, Miss Jessica is my guest." "Really? Mr. Sun kept silent for a while, saying calmly, "That's interesting. We're also businessmen. Since we're all businessmen, I think we can have a good talk." Luocio chuckled. "Do you need anything?" Mr. Sun said calmly, "It's very simple. No matter how much Jessica gives you, we'll give you double or even more. As long as you return Jessica and the things in her hands to us, that's all. You seem to have a strong purchasing power." Luocio narrowed his eyes. Mr. Sun said calmly, "Cut the crap. I don't know how much you know from Jessica, but if you know, you'll regret negotiating with me here. But it's okay, I like negotiating with people with gut. 1 billion. 1 billion? Euros. Mr. Sun said calmly. Luocio said calmly, "That's a lot. However, this customer, it's a pity that we don't accept money." "What?" "Italy, Turin. Alpino Street, number 38. Well, Unit 4, study room." Boss Luo narrowed his eyes. "Customer, is the bottle of Margot in front of you tasty?" "Who are you?" The voice was full of shock, fear, and panic. In an apartment at the specific address, the wine glass in the man's hand fell to the ground. He stood up abruptly, looking around the study room, which was empty except for him. Chapter 208. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. But obviously, this Mr. Sun was also a man who had experienced storms. He quickly recovered from the state of shock. But at the same time, he quickly walked to the door and turned off the light in the study room, making it dark. In this way, even if someone was monitoring him outside the room, they wouldn't be able to see his current situation. He didn't believe that the man could see him from a country tens of thousands of kilometers away. There must be someone hiding nearby. Quickly organizing his thoughts, Mr. Sun did something on the notebook on the desk while calmly saying, "You are very powerful to be able to find me. Can you tell me where you came from? If you plan to do business with us, you will naturally know us." Mr. Sun raised his eyebrows and said slowly, "You said you don't charge any money, right? Then, if you feel that money doesn't hold value, how about gold and other hard currencies?" "We don't accept any form of currency," Luocio said in a low voice, "but don't worry, sir. The reason why I contacted you is just to get to know you and take a look at the so-called Michael Club. But I'm a little disappointed. Sir, you don't seem to be the core figure of the club. It seems that in the code name of Mr. Sun, you on the other end of the phone probably don't have a number. You don't even have a number. You are purely an external contact officer." The man took a deep breath. "Condition, you can state your condition. There's no need to say too much since you call yourselves businessmen." "We will naturally do business." Luocio put the phone to his lips, "But for you, it's not the time yet. Besides, I am a curious person. Then, let me see to what extent your so-called order of unifying evil can achieve." The voice was completely cut off here. The man narrowed his eyes and looked at the interface on the phone's screen. At this time, he received another call. It was an order issued by the computer when he sat down, and now there was a reply. "Sir, Demon Vision has observed around you and didn't find any suspicious people. In addition, we can't trace the source of the phone signal. I'm afraid the other party has a very clever hacker helper." "You can't find anyone suspicious?" The man couldn't help but be furious. "Then tell me, how did he see the name of the bottle of red wine I'm drinking? Perhaps the other party is someone who has the same ability as Mr. Demon Vision. Rice bucket." "I'm sorry, sir. Do you have any other orders?" "Get ready immediately. I want to leave this place." The man stood up decisively and said, "This place has been exposed. After I leave, come and destroy the things here. No, prepare for me first. I want to go out to sea. Right away." Yes, the man closed the notebook and pressed his hands on it, but he felt a kind of gaze that seemed to be poured on him all the time, making all the pores on his body feel like a cold air was being poured into his body. Yes, the man felt an unprecedented fear. The unknown was too frightening. It's you. The moment he hung up the phone, Jessica opened her mouth. She looked at the boss of the club with vigilance and fear. She basically heard the latter part of the conversation between him and Mr. Sun. She woke up halfway through the conversation. Luochu looked at Jessica's eyes and returned the phone to her. It seems that Michael Club's hypnosis on you isn't strong enough. That man seemed to want to wake up the part of you that was brainwashed by hypnosis, but apparently he failed. Jessica thought quickly. She gritted her teeth and stood up with the help of the wall. During these years when I was sent out, I didn't go back on time several times because of the mission. After a long time, I started to resist my other self more and more. She was afraid that it was because of something else. Luochu didn't expose her. Even when she was in great pain due to the hypnosis, she obviously grasped her collar tightly for a short period of time. She grasped the pendant of the necklace inside her collar. Jessica suddenly looked at the weird boss and gritted her teeth. It seems that you know more about Michael Club than I do. Yes, I know about this place recently. The new boss of the club didn't intend to beat around the bush. Then I paid some price and finally got some information. Jessica suddenly asked, since you know what Michael Club has done and you have this kind of strange power, why do you still allow this organization to exist? Luochu said indifferently, are you testing our position? Jessica took a deep breath. Since you have the mysterious power, you can totally make the world more beautiful, right? Luochu shook his head. Our aim is never to give for free. Besides, why do we have to make Michael Club disappear? Is it simply because of its existence that this world is filled with more darkness, causing many people to sink into pain? Jessica gritted her teeth. At least without it. Before she finished her words, Luochu interrupted her. Since ancient times, has the war ever stopped? If one Michael Club disappears, can you guarantee that there won't be another one? You can't guarantee this point. As for us, there's no need to guarantee. Jessica sneered. In the final analysis, it's just because the profit isn't enough. If there's enough profit, you'll naturally take action, right? You're really a businessman for nothing but profit. Luochu said indifferently, there's no need to infuriate us. And just like what you said, we're indeed businessmen for nothing but profit. If you can afford the transaction fee, you can ask us to make this club disappear. Jessica smiled bitterly. I'm afraid that even if I use everything I have, it won't be enough to eradicate 1% of it. Luochu didn't say anything, just stood there quietly. In the dim alley, he seemed to be unusually quiet, as if he was a part of the darkness. Jessica was also silent. After a long while, Jessica said slowly, I want to make a deal. Please say. Jessica said in a low voice, Michael Club is very strict. They don't tolerate betrayal and they're very cruel. I need to know if my mother is safe now. Jessica had to consider her next action. She even worried that the people in the club wouldn't be threatened by her. After all these years, she gradually woke up and felt that they were a group of lunatics. She couldn't understand the thinking mode of those lunatics at all. At the cost of 5 years of her life, Jessica got the answer from the club boss. I'm sorry, customer, your mother died 25 years ago. Luochu's answer almost made Jessica collapse. Impossible. Jessica almost roared, impossible. A few months ago, I even had a video call with my mother. She's still alive. Luochu sighed. In fact, you're an orphan. Your mother passed away when you were very young. You wandered on the street and were brought back by the club. The club has been hypnotizing you since you were young, and the mother you think of is just an actress. You're lying. Luochu came to the front of Jessica, stretching out his hand and touching her forehead lightly. Then he said, Actually, I still have the memory of my childhood, but it has been hidden in the depth of my mind. In this case, you should be able to believe me. The memory gradually spread out in Jessica's mind. When she was 20 years old. Mother, don't worry. I'll definitely become an excellent believer. After my birthday, I'll be sent out to fight for our Lord's cause. I'll definitely give you the chance to transcend. Child, don't work too hard. Take care of your body and do what you can. Got it, Mother? When she was 18 years old. Sorry, Mother, I didn't reach the target in today's training. Child, don't work too hard. Take care of your body and do what you can. You have to believe that our Lord will see your efforts in His eyes. Mother, can I eat your apple pie tomorrow? If you work hard tomorrow, I'll make it for you. You have to work hard. Okay. Mother. When she was 13 years old. Mother, what's the place on the other side of the sea? I don't know. I just saw the place on the other side of the sea from videos and videos. Are there a lot of people there? Of course. The other side of the sea is also a very dangerous place. You have to remember that we can only find happiness here. When she was 10 years old. Mother, where are you? I'm so scared. Child, I'm here. Can you hear my voice? Good boy, pick up the dagger in your hand. Do you see that hound? Come, believe in yourself and kill it. It's the incarnation of the devil. As the Lord's believers, we have the obligation to kill it. Listen, in order to protect the paradise we live in, sometimes we have to use force. It's a last resort. I've made the best apple pie for you. Good boy. But she was still scared. Mother, I don't want to kill this hound, 6 years old. Where is this place? Is it here? This is paradise. It's a place without sorrow and hatred. Who are you? Child, have you forgotten? I'm your mother. Mother, good boy. 5 years old. Go away, stinky brat. Don't stay in front of my dad's shop. I'm hungry. Do you want to eat? The bread here? If you pretend to be a puppy and crawl around here, I'll give it to you. Woof woof. Woof woof, eat. Puppy. 3 years old. Mother, I want to listen to the story of Cinderella. Okay, but you have to sleep after listening to it. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a family of hunters. Jessica leaned against the wall. Her body slid down slowly and sat on the cold floor. Chapter 209. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The number of vehicles on the street decreased, and the voices of the people gradually dispersed. 12 o'clock midnight. 2 o'clock a.m. 3:30 a.m. Jessica finally raised her head slowly. She touched the corner of her eyes subconsciously, but found that there were no tears. Jessica was still silent. She looked at this person who was the only one who accompanied her in this dark alley, sizing him up carefully, and then said slowly, "Thank you. Have you thought about what you need?" Jessica nodded. First of all, the 2 letters are invalid, but I'll still use the transaction fee that we agreed on before. Please go ahead. Jessica took a deep breath. I need the power to fight against Michael Club. Are you going to take revenge on Michael Club by yourself? Jessica said indifferently, Do you need to know the purpose of your customers when you sell things to them? Luochu shook his head. No, it's just my personal curiosity. But Jessica said decisively, Then don't talk about it anymore. I need the power to take revenge. As you wish, dear customer. The club's boss bowed slightly. He snapped his fingers in the air, and an ancient parchment scroll slowly fell from the sky. It slowly opened in front of Jessica. The surroundings seemed to have entered a different space, which was dark and empty. Jessica took a deep breath. At this moment, she was willing to be an avenger. The moment she pressed her palm on the sheepskin scroll, the pain caused by the fracture of her arm disappeared rapidly. Her leg that was stuck because of the car accident had recovered. A power that was far beyond the past seemed to be gushing out from her body continuously. Suddenly, a slight crackling sound came from Jessica's body. It was a strand of blue-purple, irregular light that wound around her body. Jessica stretched out her palm subconsciously. She looked at the blue-purple arc light that was rolling between her fingers. It was electric current. You've strengthened your body a little. Luoqiu looked at Jessica's astonishment after gaining the power, saying calmly, as for the electric power, it'll be stronger than your body because it'll keep growing. Of course, with its growth, it'll also reduce your life. Jessica looked at him silently. The stronger it is, the faster I'll die, and the faster you'll get the transaction fee, right? You're really a profit-seeking businessman. But she shook her head at once. It's nothing. Anyway, I've never thought of you as a kind person. It's enough for me to have these. While saying this, Jessica walked past Luoqiu and dashed into the depth of the alley without saying anything. Luoqiu looked at the goods of Michael Club with astonishment. Jessica seemed to leave them here on purpose, and she didn't intend to take them away. Luoqiu couldn't help but ponder as he lifted the big bag. In the residence behind the small traditional Chinese medicine pharmacy, the old Chinese medicine doctor, who had been busy for a whole day, was lying on the table, sleeping soundly. Because of Officer Ma's order, the old Chinese medicine doctor could only try his best to look after the seriously injured guy who was sent here not long ago. The old Chinese medicine doctor didn't know that the patient had woken up. Yes, Yuhua had woken up not long ago. But he didn't move. On the one hand, the tendons and bones of his hands and feet were cut off, completely losing the ability to move. On the other hand, it was the side effect of the forbidden medicine. It wasn't the first time he used this forbidden medicine. Ever since the Michael Club generously sold some trial products, and when he saw his martial uncle become extremely powerful after using this forbidden drug, he knew the side effects of this drug. For a long period of time, its side effect would make people extremely weak. Only by using it continuously could one maintain his spirit. But he also knew from his uncle that using it continuously was equal to squeezing one's life. The power beyond the limit of one's physical body had to be paid with one's life. However, even with this as the price, he still couldn't fulfill his original expectation and ended up like this. As a martial artist, he knew clearly how serious the consequences of his injuries were. Even if he immediately reconnected his tendons and bones after being cut off, he was afraid that he couldn't recover to his original state, not to mention that such a long time had passed. Disabled. These were the words that lingered in his mind like a nightmare ever since he woke up. Looking back at the past, Yuhua's heart was filled with extreme hatred. He wasn't afraid of death, but he didn't want to become such a coward. As a martial artist, there was nothing more terrible than not being able to practice martial art. I'm already a disabled person. Yuhua lay on his sickbed. The memories of the past few years kept surging in his heart. His heart was screaming. It was as if he was trapped in a pitch-black cage, and this cage was constantly shrinking, oppressing his body. When the despair reached the limit, he seemed to be suffocating. A hot stream streamed down from the corner of his eyes. Tears. This made Yuhua more agitated. This kind of cowardice even made him feel that his heart was being stabbed by a sharp bayonet. Fury, hatred, rancor, humiliation, all of these things completely exploded in his heart. Carly. I hate it so much. He finally roared out like a ferocious ghost from hell, hysterically. Ah! I hate it so much. Ah! He crazily struggled his body, but he couldn't move his hands and feet, so he could only turn over from the sickbed. He fell on the ground, his cheeks sticking to the cold floor, sobbing like a helpless child. I hate it so much. Suddenly, he saw a pair of legs. Someone was standing in front of him without him noticing. Yuhua raised his head with difficulty. He looked at this person, this man wearing a weird clown mask. This man squatted down at this moment, slowly opening his mouth in front of him. Customer, what do you want? What do I want? Yes, no matter what it is, as long as you can pay the price, we can fulfill it for you. That voice became softer, like the spring equinox. No matter what it is. Power. I want power. I want power. Can you give it to me? Yu Hua suddenly roared. The most powerful power, the power to break all the fate. Can you give it to me? He seemed to be crazy. Can you give it to me? Ha 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 ha. Customer, what do you want to pay with? What? Yu Hua laughed crazily. As long as I can stand up again. As long as I can have the power to surpass myself. No matter what it is, I can give it to you. My wealth. My life. Even my soul. Are you sure? Cut the crap. Give it to me. As you wish, dear customer. Wait, what are you going to do? At this moment, Yu Hua looked at the strange man in front of him in horror, watching him dissolve the blue powder in the water. This blue powder, he was so familiar with it. Of course, it's for you. The syringe filled with blue solution pierced into his arm. This dose is enough to give you an incomparably powerful power. No, no. I don't want it. Stop. I don't want it. Sorry, customer. The contract has been signed, you have to obey it. Don't, Power, endless power started to surge out of Yu Hua's body crazily, but his heart was beating crazily, as if it would explode at any time. One dose after another was injected into the blood vessels of Yu Hua's arms slowly and steadily. Along with the surging of his blood, the power of the blue powder was crazily flowing into every part of his body. They even rushed up to his head and invaded it. Finally, Yu Hua knelt down on the ground. His muscles were crazily expanding. His face was bulging with dense and strong blood vessels, so was his whole body. The densely packed and swollen blood vessels on his body turned into messy spiderweb-like patterns after being rolled around. Yu Hua put his hands on the ground. His whole body was crazily trembling. His fingers were crazily clenching, easily crushing the hard ground. However, the endless power in his body was still surging, as if it had no limit. He had to vent the pain in his body in this way. His fists fiercely struck the floor. Each punch was able to shatter the hard concrete floor. He was like a pile driver in the middle of work. Power. Ha 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 ha. I have power. Ha ha ha. Yu Hua stood up slowly while laughing crazily. At this moment, he seemed to feel that he was almost invincible and could even destroy everything. This feeling is so wonderful. Yu Hua looked at his hands and laughed crazily again. Then, he sneered. He took a step forward. However, after only one step, he knelt down on the ground instantly. Blood, a large amount of blood, a large amount of black blood, was crazily bursting out from each of his blood vessels. He screamed crazily. His muscles and bones seemed to be being crushed bit by mechanical pressure. Yu Hua's eyeballs directly rolled up, showing the whites of his eyes, which were filled with blood to the limit. The man who stood in front of him from the beginning to the end, and brought him the so-called power, at this moment, slowly took off the mask on his face. Yu Hua moved his lips, seeming to want to say something. But Yu Hua didn't say anything in the end. He had lowered his head, and his body fell on the ground like a collapsed statue, pressing into the black blood pool. At this moment, the boss of the club bent down elegantly, saying softly, "Customer, are you satisfied? Then please pay the transaction fee." Chapter 210. A Genius Will Remember Love in 1 second/small? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. Ma Haud and Yi Yen looked extremely serious. Since last night, they hadn't closed their eyes for more than 5 minutes, even though King Kong had been locked up. But Yu Hua was dead. The people who rushed to the old Chinese medicine doctor's place couldn't help sweating when they saw the scene. The state of Yu Hua's death was too horrifying. His whole body was lying in a pool of sticky, almost black blood. Most of his muscles were torn open, and there was no part of him that was intact. The real bloody mess was probably like this, and the cracks on the floor. Turning over Yu Hua's body, Yi Yen looked at everything here silently. He frowned. These damages should be caused by Yu Hua. Sir Ma also frowned. What kind of torture could make a person become like this? Ma Hao looked at the old Chinese medicine doctor with a pale face. You really didn't see anything? You can't even hear a thing when you're in this state? The old Chinese medicine doctor shook his head, his face full of fear. Sir Ma, how can I lie to you? Since you started working for me, I've been treating you for decades. Don't you know what kind of person I am? I saw the situation as soon as I woke up, so I immediately contacted you. Ma Hao took a deep breath. The air was filled with the smell of blood. It was like the smell of dead fish in the sewers. It was fishy and stinky. Could it be someone from Michael Club? He had to look at his old partner Yi Yan, asking the first thought in his mind. Yi Yan shook his head, sighing. No matter what, Yu Hua is dead. Besides, he's just a buyer, so he shouldn't know much about Michael Club. The key is to go to Xiao Se Ku. Ma Hao nodded. I'll send people to watch this guy 24 hours a day. He can't even commit suicide. I don't believe that the people from the Michael Club have the guts to break into the police station. With this, Sir Ma patted Yi Yan's shoulder. Bro, don't worry, I'll send more people. As long as that lady is still here, I'll definitely help you find her. And that batch of goods? Yi Yan patted Ma Hao's hand on his shoulder, forcing a smile. He heaved a long sigh, looking at the sky outside the window. It's dawn. Shall I send you back to the Peace Hotel? Ma Hao thought for a while. Yi Yan shook his head. It's okay. I want to be alone. Let me know if there's any news from King Kong. You won't go missing again, will you? Ma Hao asked seriously. It's okay, you can tell your tigress that you're safe. Yi Yan smiled. He shook his black windbreaker and walked out of the door. After washing his face, Luoqiu looked at himself in the mirror. The feeling in the Chinese medicine pharmacy had faded away from his heart. Yu Hua broke his usual calmness. After he finished the transaction, it was like an oil lamp that burned out. He returned to his room quickly, sitting in front of the desk. There were 2 letters here which were written by Jessica. Of course, according to her request, the contents of these 2 letters were invalid. But it didn't mean that he couldn't open them. Moreover, the appointed time had passed, 7:01 a.m. Luoqiu tore open the first letter. There's an island in the Pacific Ocean. It's the heaven of Michael Club. There are many people living there, including children, adults, believers. So, please liberate those people on this island. If my soul is not enough, I can at least rescue my mother and free her from the beliefs of the Michael Club, so that she can start a new life and forget my existence. There wasn't much content. But this was what Jessica wanted from the club after considering that her plan had failed. Luoqiu took this letter and put it on the top of the trash can. Since Jessica knew that her mother was just a scam, this letter had no value to exist anymore. It burned in the air and the ashes scattered in the small trash can. Luoqiu closed his eyes. He put his palm on the second letter but didn't open it immediately. This lock couldn't stop Yi Yan. The moment he opened the door, he suddenly remembered the scene where Jessica gave him her gun not long ago. He heaved a long sigh, running his fingers across the furniture in this unit. He sat on the sofa and closed his eyes. It seemed that Jessica was sitting beside him. It seemed that she was eavesdropping on the sound of the tapping device installed in Luoqiu's house downstairs. Yi Yan covered his ears with his hands, tilting his head slightly. He thought that Jessica should be like this too. All of a sudden, Yi Yan pinched his finger and put it on his lips. He imagined that he was holding a recording pen. He imagined what Jessica would say if she was the one who recorded it. I came to Yi Yan's hometown? Yi Yan put down his hand, showing a smile that was neither happy nor sad. Even he himself didn't know. It was probably a smile. He looked around the room casually. Suddenly, he saw a black suitcase under the tea table of the sofa. Yi Yan took out the suitcase subconsciously. He touched the leather of the suitcase. It was a familiar suitcase. Yi Yan opened it. A saxophone, a letter, and a USB flash drive. It was a 2-page envelope. To Yi Yen, I know that you will come here again, and it will most likely be soon. I know that you must be curious about who I am. I've always been a member of Michael's club. Since I was a child, I grew up under the organization's training. Yes, I've always believed that the Michael Club is the object of my faith for the rest of my life. Until I met you. I even remember that 3 years ago, when I first saw you in the crowd at the airport, I still remember that you were the first person I saw. Your face was full of beard, like a drunkard who hadn't woken up yet, and the melancholy in your eyes. It's been 3 years, can't you smile happily? I know that there's always someone in your heart. And I, maybe in this life, can't become that person. But in these 3 years, in the 25 years of my life, there's you. I'm afraid I'm the kind of person you hate the most. Because you can't imagine, during the time I lurked in the criminal police organization, how many things I did that went against your values, and how many innocent people I let fall into the whirlpool of misfortune. You can't imagine, before this, how many things I did for the so-called belief, which now seems inconceivable. I'm a demon, and now this demon will become an avenger. The information in this USB flash drive is what I know, the information of the spies arranged by the organization in the headquarters, the evidence of their crimes, and the information of how you were framed. This is enough for you to prove your innocence, and allow you to obtain a significant contribution. Do you still remember? 3 years ago, you gave me a share of the credit. I think the words you said at that time are also applicable now. It's just that the person speaking is me. Yi Yen, please don't look for me. Finally, can you play the saxophone for me? Yi Yen closed his eyes and slowly sighed. Jessica, Luochio tore the second letter. If I fail and die, if Michael Club also let my mother be punished and die in anger, please let Yi Yen live happily in this life. And forget me. Luochio didn't burn it. He just folded the letter carefully and slowly put it into the envelope again. When the familiar sound of the saxophone faintly came from upstairs, Luochio locked the letter in his hand in the drawer. He closed his eyes. He put his hands in front of his body, imagining that he was also holding the saxophone. His fingers, following the sound and rhythm, bounced up and down. That was the fingering method of this song. Upstairs, Yi Yen picked up the saxophone left by Jessica, standing in the quiet living hall. The glimmer of the early morning made this place as lazy and dark as a stage. He played slowly. She stood on the roof of the building, looking at the rising sun. She covered her left ear with one hand, feeling the breeze and listening to the sound from the small earphone. The breeze lifted her hair and blew away her thoughts at the same time. A drop of tear fell down. Chapter 2:11. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/small? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. After landing on an island on the sea level, the man didn't have time to talk to the pilot on the plane and hurriedly walked down. A team of 5 people, holding the same guns and wearing a pure white windbreaker, had been waiting here for some time. Minister, you're back. The leader of the team nodded at this time. The man also nodded. He casually glanced at the other side of the island. That was the living place and the place where the believers gathered. And this side was where the base of the club was located. Mr. Sun was just a code name. In the club, everyone who was in charge of an area outside could use the code name Mr. Sun. But when he returned to the club base, the man recovered his original identity, the head of one of the 4 branches in Western Europe, code name Scorpio. Named after the 12 zodiac constellations, each branch head had a corresponding code name. Scorpio looked at the armed man in front of him. Go in first. I want to talk to the leaders. The armed man said at this time, Minister Scorpio, in fact, half an hour before you came back, the leaders of Hanged Man, Temperance, Pope, Priestess, Tower, and Wheel of Fortune were already waiting for you. Scorpio was taken aback. Among the 21 guild leaders, there were already 6 of them waiting for him in advance? He subconsciously thought about the seriousness of the matter. I see. From the secret entrance made of mountain rocks, Scorpio quickly walked all the way to the elevator and arrived at a certain deep underground area. This base had been built for a long time. Now under the island, it had expanded to a large scale. The elevator stopped, and Scorpio walked through a series of gates. Finally, he arrived at a room alone. There was only a bridge about 4 meters long leading to the front. Scorpio took a deep breath and walked to the end of the bridge. Suddenly, there was light all around. At this moment, the appearance of the entire room could be clearly seen. It was like a sphere with a small part cut off and standing upright. The walls around the sphere were divided into 21 areas of the same size. They were all screens. At this time, only 6 of the screens were lit up. The rest were all black. Hanged Man, Temperance, Pope, Priestess, Tower, Wheel of Fortune. Scorpio looked at the images on the 6 screens one by one. However, he was unable to see the faces of these leaders. The reason for that was because only the imprints of the 6 guild heads were displayed on the screens. There was a corresponding mark in the tarot card. Guild heads, may I know what matter has caused the 6 of you to look for me together? Scorpio asked in a clear voice. Hanged Man's screen suddenly flickered and a voice rang out. It sounded like the sound of metal clashing. The specially processed voice sounded unusually heavy at this moment. Just an hour ago, a total of 5 operatives arranged by the club in the criminal police headquarters have been arrested. Scorpio was shocked. What? So fast? Hanged Man, someone exposed their information. We've always known that the Interpol knows of our existence, and they've been working hard to find us. This time, our people's information has been exposed. Naturally, they will be controlled immediately. Scorpio frowned and said in a low voice, It's Jessica. She must have exposed her information. Damn it. Doesn't she care about her mother's safety? Hanged Man, she hasn't come back several times since she was sent out. Has she recovered some of her memories? Scorpio shook his head. No, it's impossible to break my hypnosis. But he suddenly fell into silence. Scorpio couldn't help but recall that weird phone call. That weird guy who had talked to him and easily revealed his hiding place. Was it possible for that guy to break his hypnosis? In fact, he had been waiting for Jessica to contact him on the way here. Because he knew that as long as Jessica's mother was still in heaven, Jessica wouldn't act rashly. Scorpio, why are you silent? This time, the one who spoke was the priestess on the screen. Scorpio had to adjust his standing posture, facing the priestess. He took a deep breath and said, Before coming here, I encountered a very weird thing. He didn't hold back what he had said to the strange man over the phone. Last time, Demon Gaze, who was assigned by the Temperance's president, had already observed my surroundings, but he didn't discover anything. But that guy seemed to be able to see my every move. The ball-shaped room suddenly fell into silence. At this moment, one of the many screens under the remaining black screen suddenly lit up. A voice came from there, Scorpio, you've worked hard. You've just returned to the island, go and have a rest first. Scorpio turned to the screen that had just lit up, saying with unusual respect, Yes, President of the Fool. The ball-shaped room fell into silence again. After a long time, Tower's voice sounded. Scorpio said that guy claimed to be a businessman. The Wheel of Fortune. He doesn't accept any cash and knows his every move. The Pope. To what extent can we do it? Hanged Man suddenly spoke. His voice sounded particularly hoarse under the voice change. Yes, that place. The Fool. It's the club, Tower. 100 years ago, it wasn't it? The priestess' voice had a trace of uneasiness. If it's really that place, what I'm worried about is whether Jessica has made any deal and what the deal is, the Fool. Everyone, don't panic. If that place is still there, it won't do anything to us. It's just a place for business, not our natural enemy. But for the sake of safety, we'd better be careful in the following period. The Wheel of Fortune. Then, let all the branches stop their activities temporarily. We need to observe for a while. Seconded. 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 1 day. 2 days. 2 days had passed. Yi Yen, who knew the principle of speed in war, sent the information left by Jessica to the headquarters at the first time and successfully controlled several spies in the headquarters. Not long after, Yi Yen received news from the headquarters that his position had been reinstated, and a special action team had been formed to prioritize the use of all resources to fight against the horrible cancer of the Michael Club. When will you leave? Ma Hao sighed. I'll be leaving tonight. Yi Yen smiled and said, the people from the headquarters will escort King Kong and me back as soon as they arrive. After that, I'm afraid I'll be busy for a long time. Ma Hao didn't say anything, but patted Yi Yan's shoulder hard. He believed that this outstanding guy would be able to make a big impact in the future. Old Yi. Old Ma. Suddenly, Ren Xiling's voice was heard. Sub-editor Ren was shouting from afar. Beside her, Luochio was following her unhurriedly. On the third day, Ren Xiling came to her husband's grave. Of course, Yi Yen and Ma Hao had jointly made up an excuse, saying that the reason why the letter pointed to this place was that Yi Yen was waiting for someone here. Ren Xiling certainly knew that Yi Yen was innocent, so she was relieved. The four of them gathered here. Silently, he sprinkled cup after cup of soju. Chapter 212. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Come in, please. Luochio returned to school on the second day after Yi Yen left. The person who received him was still the same teacher, Wang Luo. Luochio came in front of Wang Luo. She sized him up and soon recognized that he was Professor Qin Fang's former student. She also remembered the problem of how to deal with the two students in this class. Therefore, Wang Luo smiled. I remember it's Luochio. So, have you made up your mind? Do you want to transfer to another class or wait for the newly hired teacher? She didn't finish her words but continued, but I'm afraid there's another bad news here. I'm not sure. Due to the small number of students, the school seems to be discussing the cancellation of this major. Although they're hiring teachers, but the effect isn't good. It's okay. Luochio said indifferently, I'm here to handle the withdrawal procedures. Withdraw? Wang Luo, who obviously didn't expect such an answer, was slightly stupefied at this moment, asking in astonishment, Student Luochio, are you dissatisfied with the school's handling? If so, you can say it. We'll respect the student's opinion. From the school's standpoint, Wang Luo did have the responsibility to retain such students. After all, it was not because of the student's mistake, but because of the school's teacher's problem. Wang Luo didn't know what kind of person this student was. If he spread the school's fault outside after leaving the school, it would be troublesome. No, it's just my personal reason. Luochio said politely, Teacher, please rest assured that I won't hold the school accountable. If you're worried, we can sign an agreement. Well, Wang Luo considered for a while. Would you like to wait for me? I'll make a phone call. Luochio nodded. Wang Luo left the office quickly and made a phone call outside the corridor. Not long after, she walked back quickly. It's okay, the leader said there's no problem. But as for the paperwork, I don't think we can do it today. Yeah. Wang Luo, who hadn't finished her words, covered her mouth at once. Frowning, she revealed a look of retching. Are you okay? Wang Luo took a few deep breaths and drank a mouthful of water before shaking her head. She lowered her head and reached out to touch her belly. Revealing a smile, she said, I'm fine. I've gotten used to it after a few days. Luochio smiled and said, Congratulations. Wang Luo sighed. I didn't want to have a child before, but in the end I still found myself pregnant. Sigh, I'm still a little scared these days. But... She subconsciously looked out of the window. It was the location of a large tree that was blown down by the typhoon not long ago. She gently stroked her belly and revealed a blissful smile. I have a feeling that this child will be a girl. Luochio nodded and said with a smile, Yes, I think she will be a very cute girl. Love go little say, Netwaku, thank you. Sub-editor Ren, who was looking for news material on the street, looked up at the scorching sun and said to her assistant, Lizzie, go and buy 2 cups of milk tea. It's my treat. Sister Ren, didn't you hurt your hand? Don't you need to abstain? The assistant rolled her eyes. Besides, milk tea is high in calories. The assistant pinched her slightly protruding belly. I'm not like you. I don't gain weight no matter how much I eat. Ren Xiling suddenly lost her interest. She looked at the people walking around in boredom. Suddenly, she said, I was wondering why there were so many students walking around in the streets today. Don't they have classes? Lizzie smiled and said, Summer vacation is here. School is on holiday. Sister Ren, don't you know? Ren Xiling blocked the sun with her hand, looking at the blue sky and sighed. Summer vacation. Summer vacation. Summer vacation. Summer vacation? Sub-editor Ren suddenly grabbed her assistant's arm, squinting. Lizzie, didn't a holiday house ask us to do a report last week? Where's the information? Sister Ren, didn't you say you were not interested? I turned it down on the same day. Hurry up. Find it for me. Tell them I'm interested. Even half the advertising fee is okay. Sister Ren, the chief editor will explode with this discount. Don't worry. If he explodes, I'll send him sanitary pads. The hemostatic effect is absolutely good. As one of the assistants, it was not the first time for Lizzie to see the heroine's generosity. It was better to think about how to negotiate with the person in charge of the holiday house about the price. Although Ren Xiling bragged that she would give half the price, she dared not to use it casually. 20% discount was already frightening. Alas. In the club, Boss Luo was reading a travel magazine leisurely. He just bought it on the way back. It was a Russian travel guide. This was what he had promised Yu Yi a long time ago. Although she didn't mention it, it was obvious that Luo Qiu had this plan all along. The phone rang at this moment. It was Ren Xiling. Luo Qiu suddenly had a bad premonition. He hesitated for a moment, but still picked it up. It was sub-editor Ren's extremely gentle voice that could make people have goosebumps. Luo Qiu could even imagine that this woman must be squinting her eyes at this time. Baby, I heard you're on summer vacation. And then? Don't tell me you're going to continue tutoring during summer vacation. Well, go on. It's okay. If you're embarrassed, you can give me the phone number of your students' parents. I'll tell you. Tell me, what's the trouble you're looking for me for? Baby, let's go to the beach. Sunshine and beach, this is the summer vacation. Right. Take your girlfriend with you. It's very rare for me to get a few reception coupons from my client. It's too wasteful if I don't give them away. Luo Qiu tried hard to recall, and couldn't help but say, speaking of which, when did I give you the illusion that I have a girlfriend? That's settled. Ren Xiling was like an empress dowager listening to politics from behind a curtain. We'll set off tomorrow. You must bring your girlfriend out for me. If you don't bring her or don't go, then you'll have to wait for the hell of blind dates I'll arrange for you this summer vacation. That's settled. I have something else to do, let's talk about it in detail in the evening. Beep. She was in a hurry. Closing the travel magazine in his hand, Luo Qiu put the mobile phone on the cover of the travel magazine, and tapped the table with his fingers. So, when did his girlfriend's illusion appear? At this moment, the servant girl came out from the back hall. The brewed lemon black tea exuded a charming fragrance in the cool club. She put down the teacup and saucer first, then the teacup and the sugar bowl. Master, how many candies do you want today? Luo Qiu suddenly looked at Yu Yi, blinking his eyes. By the way, do you have a swimsuit? Chapter 213. Genius 1 second. Remember love/go/little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Lizzie looked at the two people in the driver's seat and the passenger's seat. Everyone in the company knew that Sister Ren had a very old son. It seemed that only a few old people in the company had seen him. Anyway, it was the first time for her to see him. Well, what was his feeling? He was probably a very quiet person, and his skin was very white. He didn't look like the kind of person who often exercised outdoors. At this age, he probably hadn't graduated from college or something. Anyway, in Sister Ren's car, she and Luocio had only introduced each other to each other. It seemed to be difficult to talk. Lizzie began to scroll through the circle of friends on her mobile phone. There were some push news. Hey, Sister Ren, the weather forecast said that there seems to be a typhoon coming. Is there any problem with a typhoon? Ren Xiling was excitedly driving on the mountain highway. Seeing that the speed had reached 145 kilometers per hour, she didn't seem to be satisfied. It's summer. It would be strange if there is no typhoon. Lizzie always felt that Sister Ren was particularly excited today. It was just going to the beach, but it didn't seem to be necessary. Hey, there is a legend near this resort. Lizzie looked at her mobile phone and said excitedly as if she had discovered a new world. What legend? Probably because of professional habit, Ren Xiling subconsciously turned her head at this moment. But when she just turned her head, Luocio, who was sitting next to her, pushed her face back. Drive. This should be the first sentence that Lizzie heard from Luocio since she got on the car. I know. This was also the first time that Lizzie saw Empress Ren, who almost ruled the entire editorial department, acting like an obedient child. It simply refreshed her understanding of Empress Ren. Legend says. But Lizzie had to finish her words. At this time of the year in this bay, in a specific place, you can hear the song from the sea. Luocio frowned. But Ren Xiling snorted. Is this a legend? Is it the sound of the sea breeze passing through reefs, cliffs, caves, and so on? In my opinion, this is just a deliberate fabrication by the merchants in the tourist area to attract tourists. Was there a lack of such occurrences? Lizzie, we are media workers. Lizzie shook her head and said, No, I'm sure it's a song. It said that it's a language of unknown meaning. Oh, the person who posted this also recorded a part of it. Shall I play it for you? The volume of the phone was turned up to the maximum, and some sounds could be vaguely heard. However, since they were traveling at high speed, the sound of wind resistance was rather loud in the car. Ren Xiling had no choice but to slow down. Seeing the car slow down, Luocio was relieved. He closed his eyes so that he could better listen to the recording from the phone. She sang in a low voice, like a murmur. Luocio couldn't distinguish what language it was, but he could tell that the voice was very clear and bright. It should be a female voice. Luocio's heart suddenly moved. When she wanted to take a good look at this post, she found that Ren Xiling and Lizzie seemed to be distracted. He frowned and put his hand on the steering wheel. The turn was in front, but the car didn't turn. At the moment when the steering wheel turned, Luocio casually pressed the horn. The harsh horn suddenly made Ren Xiling quiver, and she quickly steadied the steering wheel with both hands. F***ck. I was scared to death. Ren Xiling was still scared, patting her *SS with one hand. And Lizzie, who just realized what had happened, also broke out in a cold sweat. The car stopped at the side of the road, and they could see the sea below. Ren Xiling took a long breath. This song is poisonous. I was distracted while listening to it. Lizzie nodded and said, Yes, the person who posted it also said so. They said that they seemed to forget the time while listening to it. I didn't believe it at first, but now I really experienced it myself. Of course, I don't want to experience it again. Fortunately, Luocio came to her senses, or else. Haha. Lizzie made a face and stuck out her tongue like a female ghost. Ren Xiling swallowed her saliva, but she saw that Luocio just looked out of the window as if she didn't hear it. Anyway, let's talk about it when we arrive at the resort. Ren Xiling calmed down and restarted the engine. As for Lizzie, she didn't say anything about this legend. Finally, we're here. She had been driving since early in the morning, so it was already noon. The moment she got off the car, Sub-Editor Ren immediately stretched her body. From a distance, she was probably a very eye-catching person. Lizzie looked at her with envy, and then subconsciously looked at herself. She felt that it was better not to stretch. There was no harm without comparison. Alas! I'll carry it myself. Lucio went directly to the trunk and began to take out the luggage. It's okay. It's not heavy. Was it really not heavy? Lizzie was stunned. But looking at this young man, she didn't look like someone who often exercised. But he didn't seem to be strenuous with 3 big bags of luggage in his hand. Renziling didn't care about it at this moment. She walked to Luocio's side, stretched out her hand and put her hand on his shoulder. She whispered with a creepy smile, "Good boy, you told me last night that your girlfriend would come by herself. If I can't see it and find out that you lied to me, you can share a room with Lizzie tonight. I'll help you to get her drunk." Boss Luo had an impulse to hit this woman with a plastic bag. He sighed to himself. Because he knew this woman's terrible character, he chose to let Yi come directly. If they were in the car, it would probably be a very painful journey. No need. Luocio shook his head, looking ahead and said, "She's here. She's here, there." Renziling followed Luocio's gaze and couldn't move her eyes away. "I'll go." It was a girl standing next to the entrance of the resort. She wore a plain white dress with a beige round sunshade hat. The breeze lifted her dress gently, and at the same time, her hair was also teased. The girl stroked the hair on her ear with one hand, looking at this side at this time. In the blink of an eye, her smile had already caused the natural mountains and waters to lose their original color. After a while, Sub-Editor Rin recovered from her absent-mindedness. She took a long breath and said in a shocking tone, "I've decided, son. I'll help you to get her drunk tonight. I shouldn't have asked Yi to come." Chapter 214. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The resort was run by a couple with a daughter. The male host was Louis Hai, the female host was Luoyu. The daughter was Louis Yun. Because she had just finished the college entrance examination, she was helping her family in the resort during the summer vacation. The male host was in charge of the food, actually a chef. The female host and the daughter were in charge of entertaining the guests. There was also a 40-year-old woman who was in charge of doing odd jobs. This wasn't a large-scale resort. Although there were other large-scale resorts nearby, this resort seemed to be located in a remote location. It was surrounded by the sea and cliffs. It was a small family-style resort. The building that served as the store was probably a remodel of a former residential building. Then, 3 three-story buildings were sparsely built behind it to serve as guest rooms. There was a small yard in between, which was quite clean. The salty sea breeze blew in the courtyard, bringing with it the scent of the blue star flowers planted in the courtyard. The yard was filled with blue star flowers, green and blue intertwined like the sea. "You can see the sea from this room, are you satisfied?" The female host, Luoyu, led Luocio and others to the place where they would stay. She was quite enthusiastic. As for the boss, Louis Hai, he was a bit indifferent, but still maintained the most basic courtesy. She heard from Lizzie that the lady boss was in charge of everything, from the invitation to the discussion. "I'll go prepare the food, you guys have a chat." Louis Hai didn't want to stay any longer, leaving the room. Luoyu squeezed out a smile. "Don't mind him, this guy is always like that. But his dishes are delicious, the best in this area." When they passed by a nearby village, Luocio saw a memorial arch with Louis Village written on it. "A love go little say, Chu." The female host's surname was Luo, she must have married here. The resort was located far away from the resort. In fact, the environment was not particularly good. As for the so-called sea, a part of it was actually blocked by the cliff in front of them. If there was any merit to it, it would probably be that it was relatively quiet. "Evian, you stay here and greet the guests. I'll go make some tea." The little girl nodded obediently. She had lived here since she was young and had gone to school in a nearby town. Usually, when she had a room, she would come back to help out at home. She had very little contact with the big city, and even less contact with the people in the big city. The people she had interacted with were all guests from the nearby towns, and most of them were middle-aged and elderly. Young people generally wouldn't choose this place, because there wasn't much entertainment. But all of a sudden, there were so many beautiful people. The little girl couldn't help but feel a little reserved. Rensselaer wasn't really writing for this place, but as a professional, she definitely wouldn't be careless in this regard. Subeditor Wren wanted to finish her work as soon as possible so that she could continue her plan. Therefore, she grabbed the little girl and started to ask her questions. Are there usually many customers here? Louis Yun shook her head, sighing as she wasn't too scheming. Not many. Even in the peak season, we can only receive about 10 customers a month. When the traffic is very light, it's already good enough if we can get 2 customers a month. Rensselaer lowered her head and wrote something in her notebook. Then she raised her head. Why don't you open a resort over there, instead of here? Louis Yun seemed to hesitate for a moment. The little girl was probably not good with words, her expression was too easy to be seen through. She suddenly glanced at the door, seeming to be worried about something. Rensselaer's eyes turned. If it's inconvenient, it's okay if you don't want to tell me. Louis Yun nodded and then said, Mom said you want 2 rooms. But they're all double rooms. I'll make 1 more bed for this room. If we put them together, it's absolutely no problem for 3 people to sleep. Put a bed together? Rensselaer suddenly smiled. No. Subeditor Wren smilingly pointed at Luochio and Yu Yi, speaking like a brothel keeper. These 2 share a room. Yes, we share a room. Unexpectedly, Luochio nodded directly. Rensselaer gave a start, opening her mouth. What the hell? She thought Luochio would refuse at this time. Who would have thought that he would agree so directly? Could it be that he had already? Sure enough, the kids nowadays were all so precocious? In Subeditor Wren's mind, she began to deduce the wonderful content of what would happen after midnight. She looked at Yu Yi. She really couldn't find any fault with this girl. Although they didn't talk much recently, in Rensselaer's eyes, such a quiet girl seemed to be a perfect match for Luochio. Even under Luochio's affirmative answer, she didn't feel shy at all. She was natural and unrestrained, like an old couple who didn't feel strange at all. Then come with me. But the little girl didn't seem to be able to let go of this aspect completely. She had to lower her head, walking out of the room in a hurry. Seeing Yu Yi smiling and following Luochio obediently, Rensselaer touched her chin, muttering to herself, I miscalculated. Sister Ren, what did you miscalculate? Rensselaer said with a straight face, I thought I knew my son thoroughly. He's a piece of wood, but unexpectedly, he's really boring. These 2 couldn't have done it many times, right? Sister Ren, don't be like this, I'm just a kid. Go away. Rensselaer rolled her eyes at Lizzie, suddenly saying, Oh, stick to the wall and listen to the soundproofing of this room. What's wrong? Are you stupid? If it's too intense at night, can you control yourself? Rensselaer hummed. Or, do you want to do something embarrassing with me? Seeing Rensselaer stretching her claws, Lizzie suddenly leaned against the wall, saying in horror, Sister Ren, I'm really just a kid, don't mess with me. Hey, catch. Are you satisfied with this room? Louis Yun took a deep breath. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt more pressure to receive these 2 people than to receive 4 people just now. If not, there are more upstairs. Luochio shook his head. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, opening the door and walking to the balcony, looking at the cliff and the sea. In fact, there was a lawn outside, with a simple stone wall made of stones and cement. This holiday house was actually built in the middle of the hillside. Who's that? Luochio suddenly pointed at an old man sitting on a bench on the lawn outside. At this time, the old man was just holding a drawing board and looking into the distance. Oh, that's my grandpa. Louis Yun smiled. He's not a stranger, don't worry. Luochio nodded, walking down the small wooden ladder beside the balcony, seemingly walking towards the old man. This guest. Louis Yun gave a start. The servant girl smiled. It's okay, he's just walking. By the way, little girl, can you do me a favor? Oh please. Can you take me to the kitchen? I want to prepare the food myself. The little girl gave a start. She had never encountered such a request. Luo Qiu looked at the old man. He seemed to be in his 60s or 70s. He wore a hat and sat on the bench near the cliff. It seemed that he had been there for some time. The pencil used for scanning stayed on the drawing paper, seemingly not moving at all. Just a few strokes drew an outline, which vaguely looked like a sketch of a human body. The old man didn't seem to notice someone coming, or he didn't care about it even if he did. He just looked at the sea ahead quietly. When the sea breeze blew, the blue star flower planted under the small stone wall swayed. Luochio sat at the other end of the bench, taking out his phone to take a picture of this moment. He lowered his head, fiddling with the photo, suddenly whispering, "Why don't you finish the drawing?" The old man didn't seem to hear it. Until the second gust of sea breeze blew. He said slowly, "I can't remember. Can't remember, can't remember." He suddenly grasped the pencil in his hand, quickly drawing on the drawing paper. The crisscrossing lines were just meaningless messy strokes. The vague outline was soon covered by the messy strokes, and the original appearance couldn't be seen anymore. I can't remember. Chapter 2:15. A genius will remember love in 1 second? I will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Luo Iu was a person who was good at talking. In Ren Xiling's opinion, she should think so. Ha ha ha, Miss Ren is so beautiful, and her career is so successful. I really admire you among women. Her clothes were a style that had been popular a few years ago. She discovered that it was probably done in a hairdresser in a nearby town. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad either. Every part of her body had traces of being able to be dressed up, but there was a kind of feeling that couldn't be combined no matter what. Well, can I stand here? This way, you should be able to look thinner. Luo Iu fiddled with her hairstyle. By the way, Miss Ren, it's better to show the best part of my resort. I spent a lot of money to renovate it recently. It's a pity not to let people see it. Is there a need for this resort to exist? Although the nearby area was a tourist area, Ren Xiling still felt that she was cheated. She really shouldn't accept this small advantage. If she went to the resort to do a tour guide at her own expense, she was afraid that it would be more worry-free. Lady Boss, stand over here. Yes, this is the position. Very good, very good. Well, in this way there is no need to block the sea view outside. As for people, of course, it was out of the focus, so it was cool there. Li Zi, give me the 70 to 200 mm lens. Okay. The lady boss was very satisfied. Looking at this Miss Ren who came from the big city and installed a long lens, she felt very professional. Although it was painful to spend the money, it was worth it. Unexpectedly, Ren Xiling stopped at this time and looked at the place where her lens pointed. This guy, what is he doing there? Luo Iu was stunned and subconsciously looked back. She saw the bench on the lawn, frowned and quickly said, "Sorry, Miss Ren, I'll go there." She didn't say it clearly and went out at this time. Sister Ren, shall we follow and see? Li Zi asked at this time. Ren Xiling shook her head and said, "No need. Let's walk around and take photos. I'll see if I can finish the manuscript tonight. The rest of the time is to play." Okay. The messy brush strokes had already filled the drawing paper with all kinds of irregular lines. In the end, it even became a huge whirlpool. The old man was constantly drawing a ball, and the words "I can't remember" kept repeating to himself. Sorry, sorry. At this time, the owner of the resort quickly walked to Luochio's side. Luo Iu hurriedly asked, "Sir, my old man didn't do anything to you, right? Will he do anything to me?" Luochio looked at Luo Iu and suddenly asked. Luo Iu glanced at the old man. Seeing that he was just scribbling on the paper, she seemed to be relieved. She forced a smile and said, "No, no. He's just an old man. His mind isn't very clear. Sometimes he can't recognize people, but he definitely won't hurt anyone." Alzheimer's disease. Luo Yu was stunned. What was this guy talking about? Luoqiu continued softly, "I'm talking about Alzheimer's disease." Luo Yu nodded and sighed. She said bitterly, "Alas, it's been a few years. These days, it's getting worse and worse. In order to take care of him, I'm really worried about him. Do you think it's easy for me? I married into this godforsaken place. I have to take care of the older ones, the younger ones, and this resort. Sigh, this time I invited you here to see if you can revive it. Otherwise, I'm afraid that after this new year, my family will have to eat rice bran. So, please help me a lot." Luoqiu was not interested in listening to the owner's chatter here. From the owner's indifferent attitude and the owner's enthusiasm, he could roughly feel something. The wind is strong here. Luoqiu stood up and smiled. "Take this old man back. Actually, this place is not bad. At least I prefer the quietness here." Okay. Luo Yu nodded subconsciously. What should she say? She didn't know any high-ranking officials or nobles, nor did she have any powerful relative. The most powerful official she had ever seen was the village secretary. However, this young man made her feel even more oppressed than when she saw the village secretary. She subconsciously followed the other party's instructions. Luoqiu had gone far away, but she could vaguely hear the voice behind her. "Get up, old bastard! Don't frighten my guest. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. You old bastard! How dare you wet yourself here? My God! What kind of sin have I committed? Get up! You old bastard, get up! What the hell are you drawing? The older you are, the more sick you are. It's better to let the monsters in the sea eat you. Get up!" Song, legend. Luoqiu returned to the room and closed the window. He sat on the deck chair by the window and gradually looked at the gray sky. At this time, the phone was turned on. It was the strange song that Li Zi had played in the car before. Boom! There was lightning in the sea. Iyun. Luo Yu called her daughter after pulling her back from the lawn to the holiday house. But when she returned, she saw her husband sitting at the front desk of the store, drinking beer alone in broad daylight with a straight face. Her daughter heard the voice and rushed out. "What's wrong, Mom?" Luo Yu pulled her aside, asking quietly, "What's your dad doing? Doesn't he need to work? It's not dark yet, why is he drinking?" Lui Yun glanced at her father, saying hesitantly, "Just now, the most beautiful lady asked me to take her to the kitchen, and then, ours." Luo Yu frowned. "Is she afraid that our kitchen is not clean?" Lui Yun whispered, "No. That lady said she would prepare the food and Dad didn't need to do it. Then my father got angry and quarreled with that young lady. In the end, after that young lady showed off her knife skills, my father ran out to drink without saying a word." Luo Yu was stunned. Although her husband couldn't earn any money because he was guarding this holiday home, she really couldn't find his culinary skills in this area. Back then, if it wasn't for his culinary skills and the fact that he could make a name for himself, she wouldn't have married into this damned place from the neighboring town. But this bad-tempered guy became so dispirited after seeing someone's knife skills. It was the first time for her to see that. Grandpa, what's wrong?" Lui Yun looked at her grandpa. Luo Yu turned around and looked at the old man, only to see that he was taking off his pants. She immediately said excitedly, "You old bastard! I asked you to change your pants in your room, not here. What kind of sin have I committed to meet an old fart like you? And I married a good-for-nothing." "Enough. You're so noisy. All you do is to quarrel. Do you know anything else?" Louis Hai stood up suddenly. "Go to the kitchen if you dare. Don't you feel ashamed to be kicked out by a little girl?" Luo Yu snorted. Louis Hai was speechless. His face turned red and he snorted. "I'm so unlucky to meet such a freak in your family. Fortunately, there's only one old bastard father-in-law. If there's another old bastard mother-in-law, I'll die of anger. Don't mention my mom. Louis High glared at her like a bull. He smashed the beer bottle on the ground. Say it again. What? Do you want to beat me? Go ahead. Go ahead. Louis High raised his hand. After taking a deep breath, he closed the door and walked out without looking back. Don't wait for me for dinner. Hearing Louis High's voice, Louis Yun was so anxious that her eyes turned red. But she could only pull her mother, saying in a hoarse voice, Mom, don't be angry. There are guests here, don't quarrel with Dad. I don't care either. Luo Iyu waved her hand, walking in too. Louis Yun could only look at her grandpa silently. He didn't know what happened, right? Chapter 216. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. It was close to evening, the dark clouds on the sea had spread to this side, and then the wind and rain came. When it was time for dinner, everyone gathered in the so-called canteen, which was converted from the former living room. In fact, there were only 3 round tables separated by a small screen. The canteen painted with white dust looked very simple, but the dishes served by Louis Yun blocked the mouths of Ren Xiling and Lizzie. But no matter how much food there was no way to completely block sub-editor Ren's mouth, because Yu Yi was not here. Ren Xiling, who didn't have a good conversation all day, naturally wanted to get to know each other at the dinner table. She's not feeling well, resting in the room. Luoqiu said casually. Not feeling well? Ren Xiling gave a start, looking at Luoqiu suspiciously, but asked with concern, Did she get sunstroke? Is it serious? Do you want to see her? No need, just let her sleep for a while. Luoqiu shook his head. It was better to say that Yu Yi didn't need to eat than to say that she didn't have this function. No matter how good the food was, it would be quite troublesome to clean it up after she ate it. Louis Yun, who was carrying out the last dish, heard it and said subconsciously, Is that lady tired? After all, she cooked so much food at once. How much? It was easy to find seafood at the seaside. The table was full of sashimi, seafood soup, 9-section prawns, steamed fish, sea snails, and stir-fried delicacies, and the dishes were arranged carefully. This table of delicacies was like a 3-star Michelin restaurant, but now they were served in this simple canteen. Louis Yun still felt it was unreal. She more or less understood her father's feeling of powerlessness. These are made by Yu Yi? Ren Xiling opened her mouth, obviously surprised. The little girl smiled and said, Yes. Originally, we shouldn't have asked the guests to do this, but that young lady said that it would be better if she cooked it for you personally. Ren Xiling's eyes lit up. She picked up a piece of sashimi with her chopsticks and put it into her mouth. Even though she didn't dip it in soy sauce and didn't use the usual wasabi paste, she used mashed radish instead. The layer of fat on the sashimi and the fish meat seemed to have been calculated as they intersected with each other. He could feel the sweet fish fat and fresh fish meat on his taste buds, along with the slightly spicy and refreshing taste of the white radish. It exploded all of a sudden, and then he felt as if ice and snow were slowly melting. Ren Xiling subconsciously closed her eyes, revealing an intoxicated expression. She suddenly widened her eyes. This daughter-in-law, I'm definitely... No, you're definitely going to marry her. He was completely bought over with just a table of dishes? Luoqiu looked at Ren Xiling as if she was mentally retarded, but he threw a piece of peeled 9-section prawn into Ren Xiling's bowl. Love go little say, network Ren Xiling, who had long been accustomed to this, rolled her eyes and said, Do you want to shut me up? Luoqiu pretended that he didn't hear it. Instead, he looked at Louis Yun. Won't the boss and his wife come out to eat together? We can't finish the dishes here. It'll be more lively if we eat together, and that grandpa. Louis Yun shook her head. My dad went out. As for my mom, she said she's a bit tired, so she's resting in her room. As for my grandpa, he's not used to eating with others. She couldn't say that her family had a quarrel just now, right? The little girl sighed in her heart. How could she not wish for her family to gather together and have a peaceful meal? Is anyone here? Is anyone here? Suddenly, a loud and clear voice came from outside. A young man came in, about 27 or 28 years old. His clothes were wet, and he was carrying a black leather suitcase. He looked like he was in a hurry. Alas, I can't see any shops or villages in this place. Fortunately, I found such a hotel. Louis Yun took the young man to the cafeteria, letting him sit at the table nearby. Perhaps it was not convenient to greet him in the front, because the helper had already finished work before the rain. "Sir, this is a holiday house, not a hotel," Louis Yun said in a charming manner. The young man dyed his hair blonde, wearing a vest, with a huge tattoo of a qilin on his left arm, and an earring on his ear. Such a dress might be too shocking for a girl who lived in such a peaceful place. Louis Yun didn't get too close to him. The young man waved his hand casually. "Whatever, I'll stay here tonight. Go and prepare something for me to eat. Oh, the dishes on the table look pretty good. Give me one as well." The young man glanced at Luocio's table, squinting his eyes and saying. The girl was embarrassed. "Sir, those dishes were prepared by the guests themselves. Our restaurant doesn't have the ability to prepare them." "What a shitty place is this? Do the guests need to prepare their own food?" The young man frowned. Oui. Louis Yun didn't know what to say at once. The young man was dissatisfied. "Then what do you have here?" Louis Yun had to say. "My dad went out, he's in charge of the kitchen. If you don't mind, I can cook some dishes." The girl lowered her head. Perhaps she didn't have much confidence in her cooking skills. The young man turned his eyes, walking straight to Luocio's table, pulling out a chair and sitting down without greeting them. He put his hands on the table, squinting his eyes and smiling. "Guys, how about setting up a table? I don't think you can finish all the food on the table. I'm really hungry here. If it's convenient for you guys, I'll pay some money. Let's have a meal together?" Ren Xiling ignored him. First, she slowly finished the prawn meat in the bowl. Then, she wiped her lips and smiled at the young man. The young man felt there was a chance, smiling too. When he was about to take the bowl and chopsticks, Ren Xiling said indifferently, "Not for sale." "Sell what?" It was made by her future daughter-in-law to show filial piety to her future mother-in-law. Subeditor Ren didn't want to use it to greet a stranger. "Who said I can't finish it? I'll finish it even if I'm stuffed to death." The young man narrowed his eyes even more. He suddenly chuckled and said, "I think the seafood on this table is quite presentable. 5,000. If you let me eat a portion, I'll give you 5,000. 5,000. That's a lot." Ren Xiling was surprised, and then said expressionlessly, "Not for sale. Besides, can you go away if you don't have anything else? Don't disturb us eating." The young man shrugged his shoulders and stood up suddenly. He stood and looked down, looking at Luocio, Ren Xiling and Lizzie, whistling and chuckling. "What a pity, such a good table of food. Don't eat it." His face suddenly darkened. "Don't eat it." The young man reached out with lightning speed and grabbed the table with both hands. It seemed that this guy was going to flip the table, looking like a rogue tyrant. Unexpectedly, the young man's face turned red, and he couldn't flip the table at all. His eyes suddenly became astonished, looking at the three people in front of him. The two women were holding bowls, looking at him in astonishment. Only the silent young man pressed his palm on the table, intentionally or unintentionally. At this moment, the young man's hands seemed to feel that they had been pricked by something and quickly retracted them. Just when he was astonished, Luocio picked up some dishes with chopstick. "If you're hungry, eat something." He slowly pushed the bowl of food over. "It doesn't cost anything. Just eat." The young man swallowed his saliva secretly, subconsciously wanting to pick up the bowl. Unexpectedly, when he held the bowl in his hand, he felt the terrifying weight of the bowl. No matter how hard he tried, it was as if he couldn't lift the bowl. The young man with a special background suddenly knew that he might have met a master, and he was so scared that his back was covered with cold sweat. "Why don't you eat it?" Luocio glanced at it and smiled. "It tastes good." The young man was suddenly scared. He looked at Luocio and his heart jumped. "If I could take it, I would have picked it up long ago." I'm sorry, I lost my temper because I was too hungry." He swallowed his saliva, stepped back and waved his hand. "I'll eat the food made by the little girl. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." Looking at this young man with blonde hair, tattoos and earrings on his arms, and a domineering aura, apologizing and retreating in a comical manner, Ren Xiling opened her mouth and whispered in astonishment, "Is this guy mentally retarded?" Lizzie said thoughtfully, "Sister Ren, I think it's Luocio's indifference that scared the gangster away. You see, ordinary people would have been scared if they met him. We are not afraid and we are calm. This kind of person is probably worried about our background, so he didn't act rashly." "Well, it makes sense." Ren Xiling looked at Luocio and sized him up. "My boy is really scary when he doesn't talk. He is the type who is difficult to get along with, right?" Lizzie added silently in her heart. In fact, she didn't dare to look at Luocio directly. Luocio said, "Hurry up, I'll take some leftovers back to my room. You're tired today, go to bed early." "I have to rush for my manuscript," Ren Xiling said while eating. "Boy, I'm not feeling well tonight, don't make trouble for me." "Was it better to ask that guy to flip the table?" Ren Xiling said again. "Be careful at night, lock the door. That guy didn't look like a good person. Remember to shout if something happens." Lizzie nodded. After a while, Ren Xiling and Lizzie went back to their room. Luocio was pretending to pack food. Lui Yun ran into the kitchen and didn't dare to come out. The young man suddenly looked over, hesitated for a while, and then said carefully, "Senior, I'm sorry to offend you just now." "You didn't do anything, it's nothing," Luocio said indifferently. The young man took a deep breath. "I felt a light demon aura, so I wanted to test it. I didn't expect there's such a senior here. I'm just showing off my slight skill in front of an expert, making a fool of myself." Luocio didn't respond. The bowl and the table couldn't be lifted because they experienced two different forces. There were 4 different forces altogether. 2 of them were made by himself, as for the other 2, it was Lizzie. She first fixed the table, and then Luocio's force. The bowl of food was the same 2 different forces, one of which came from the club boss, or the young man wouldn't be so embarrassed. Seeing Luocio didn't say anything, the young man knew some senior cultivators were like this, so he had to say, "Now that I think about it, the little demon beside you should be your servant." Luocio didn't want to talk to him, and threw him a "you're so annoying" look. The young man didn't seem to feel it, suddenly whispering, "Senior, you came here for that legend, right?" "What legend?" Luocio stopped. The young man smiled. "Senior, let's not beat around the bush. Dozens of years ago, a sea monster appeared in this area. All these years, they have been disappearing without a trace, but recently there are some signs of them reappearing, aren't there?" Saying this, the young man stood up, clasping his hands towards Luocio, and bowed slowly. "To be honest, I came here to find the trace of that sea monster. I hope Senior can join hands with me to eliminate this sea monster from the deep sea." "Not interested," Luocio said indifferently. "I'm not here for this." "Hey, Senior! Senior! Senior, please wait!" The young man hurriedly shouted. "I'm Momo, the successor of Dragon Tiger Mountain." "Senior." Luocio had already walked out of the canteen. Momo frowned, sitting down again, mumbling to himself. "I heard this is the territory of Xian Xian Huan Zhen Dao. Is he the successor of this mysterious sect? If not for this, then what is he here for?" Momo's fingers tapped on the table, thinking, "Master said I was born with great inspiration, and now I'm much more powerful than him when he was young. I haven't met a match on the way down the mountain. It's rare to meet a master, should I have a try? I didn't prepare well just now, so I suffered a loss. I can't ruin the reputation of Dragon Tiger Mountain like this." Guest, your food. Louis Yun carried the plate, walking out carefully. Momo smiled. He wiped his wet hair back, taking the plate from Louis Yun's hands, saying softly, "Little girl, I'm sorry, I didn't scare you just now." Looking at Momo's completely different spirit, Louis Yun was stunned. This man was quite good-looking. It's okay, yen. Chapter 217. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Ice cubes were added into the cold water. The club boss was sitting on a deck chair near the French window, listening to the wind and rain. The wind and rain by the sea were different from those in the city. Dragon Tiger Mountain? Yu Yi stood beside Luochio, answering his question. Basically, I didn't know much about the Eastern Taoist Circle, so I don't know much about the division of this land. But I've heard of Dragon Tiger Mountain. It's famous in the circle. Luochio shook the ice cubes in the cup, saying softly, I didn't hear much about Dragon Tiger Mountain when I was a child. But most of the stories were about catching ghosts and subduing demons. The Taoist master of Dragon Tiger Mountain should be called that. Yu Yi didn't seem to care too much, saying indifferently, as long as this Momo doesn't do anything unnecessary, it's okay. Miss Maid said and picked up Boss Luo's mobile phone. Before this, the strange song had been playing on a loop in the phone. She said softly, even if it's just a recording, it can still penetrate into the soul. The person who sang it seemed to be singing with his soul. Siren. I don't know which kind it is. In Western legends there are some kinds of sirens with beautiful songs. Luochio asked curiously, have you ever seen a siren? Yu Yi smiled. I once met a siren in the Barents Sea. But this race almost died out. If that siren is still alive, she might have become old. Luochio asked, does this song sound like a siren? Yu Yi shook her head. Sirens usually don't sing such sad songs. She closed her eyes and used her heart to feel what the song was trying to convey. Suddenly, she said, but if you put your heart into it, it might not be impossible. But Miss Maid always took responding to her master as her first creed. This kind of weather is a good time for the siren to breathe. Master, Yu Yi, go to the coast to have a look, maybe we can find something. Luochio put down the cup. His hands stopped in the air, seeming to be thinking about something. Then he waved his hand. No. Let it unfold naturally in front of us this time. Otherwise, we'll lose the fun of exploring. For Luochio, if it wasn't necessary, the most boring way was to pay a certain amount of lifespan to get the ability of almost omniscient information. The boss of the club grabbed the servant girl's hand and changed his mobile phone to soft music. He said softly, since you're here, just be a tourist and have a vacation. Yu Yi smiled faintly. Her gaze quietly swept past the door, but she did not alarm the pair of peeping eyes that were hidden outside the door. Sub-editor Ren's eyes. At this time, Ren Xiling was relieved to see the two strolling in the room with the music. She tiptoed and stepped back. This guy is so romantic. Yeah. Hurry up, hurry up. The wind and rain came and went quickly. When they woke up the next day, the sky had cleared up and the blue sea stretched as far as the eye could see. According to Louis Yun, the guest only stayed for one night and left early in the morning. The little girl wasn't happy about completing such a temporary business deal. Instead, a worried expression appeared on her face. Because the boss of the resort, Louis Hai, hadn't come back since he left yesterday afternoon. The little girl tried to call him, but his phone was turned off. When did your dad not leave for a couple of days in a fit of anger? Humph! That loser better not come back. Or I'll be angry when I see him. Luo Iu scolded with anger. At the same time, it was the first sentence that Luochio and others heard when they came out of the room. Seeing the distinguished guests wake up, the landlady put on a smiling face. Miss Ren, you're awake. I'll prepare breakfast for you right away. Ren Xiling said, no need, we're going to have a look at other places. Luo Iu wasn't satisfied. Miss Ren, shouldn't you continue to give me this resort? Before she could finish her words, Renziling had already said with ease, "Madam, if you want people to come here for a trip, you have to let them know what else they can do here besides the accommodation, right? If you don't introduce the surrounding places, why would they come here? They'd better stay in a hotel." Luo Iu hurriedly said, "You're right, Miss Rin is right. How about this? I'll let my girl lead the way for you. You're not familiar with this place, so it's better to have someone follow you." Renziling thought for a while, then nodded. At this time, Luo Iu pulled her daughter to the side and carefully ordered, "Keep an eye on these people. If they are just playing around and not working, tell me. We can't just spend this advertising fee for nothing." How should she say it? After all, Luo Iu is still her mother. The little girl just nods silently. Even though Luo Iu has always been like this, the little girl still doesn't associate her with Mother Lu or Old Lady Wei in the articles she has read in textbook. "Mom, I'm going out. Grandpa hasn't had breakfast yet." Okay, I'll get it done. He won't starve." Luo Iu waved her hand and interrupted her impatiently. Though her tone wasn't good, the girl had been used to it after so many years. For the girl, it was quite stressful to be sandwiched between several city people. Especially, there was a woman with excellent cooking skills who was much more beautiful than the stars on TV. Louis Yun felt like an ugly duckling. "Alas, it's not easy for you, kid. Your mother probably asked you to keep an eye on us to see if we're playing," Renziling, who was driving, suddenly said. Louis Yun didn't know how to reply, so she didn't know how to say it now. No, Mom is afraid that you don't know the way and will get into trouble, so, okay. Renziling shook her head. "I've taken your money, so I'll do it seriously. I won't flatter you or slander you on purpose. Just write whatever you want." "Thank you so much, Miss Ren." She wasn't Renziling's opponent at all. However, such a simple girl was probably the type who could be easily bullied, right? Luochu didn't want to embarrass the girl, so he asked, "Are there any scenic spots here?" Louis Yun suddenly became spirited. "There are no big scenic spots here, but there are some small ones. Well, there's a heaving sea cliff in front, let me take you there." With blonde hair and fashionable clothes, Momo was very eye-catching walking in Louis Village. However, it couldn't compare to a kind of flirtatious slut called Shamate that was popular here a few years ago. Therefore, although the people in the village looked askance, it wasn't to the extent that they couldn't avoid it. Besides, what if he was a tourist? The entire Louis Village was running holiday houses. "Sir, do you need a hotel? We have a one-stop service. You know. Are you the boss here? Are you a local?" "Yes. You can relax 100 times. It's absolutely safe here." The middle-aged boss smiled brightly, because of his yellow teeth. Momo thought for a while. "Okay, help me find an old man." Old man? The middle-aged boss gave a start, looking at Momo up and down with a weird expression. Then, he hesitated. "Sir, do you really want an old man? How old is he? If he's too old, I'm afraid I can't find him." Momo said indifferently, "Of course, the older the better. I don't mind if you find the oldest one, as long as she speaks clearly, has a good memory and is not muddle-headed." The middle-aged boss swallowed his saliva. "Well, the oldest woman here is more than 70 years old. I don't know if she's willing or not." Momo frowned, throwing out a stack of banknotes, smiling casually. "Don't worry, I'll reward you handsomely if you do it well." He learned this kind of forthrightness when he went down the mountain. What he wanted was this kind of temperament. Yen Aunt Lu, Old Lady Wei, from Lu Sun's work Blessing. Chapter 218. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Momo seriously doubted the efficiency of the boss. It had been more than an hour, but he still hadn't found her. With his extraordinary skills, it was not difficult for him to find a source of money in the city. The current successor of Mount Longhu, who had a Jianghu dream, would occasionally rob the rich to help the poor without leaving a name for himself. But at the same time, he also knew that time was money, so he had lost the patience to continue waiting here. Just as he was about to leave, the middle-aged businessman walked in with a disgusting smile on his face. Sir, I've finally found the person you wanted." The boss wiped his forehead hard. "You don't know, this auntie hasn't done this for many years. This time, I almost had to kneel on the ground before I managed to invite the auntie over. But don't worry, this auntie is famous in the past. Hee, I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. When I was young, I also had a taste of it." What was this guy saying? Momo looked at him in astonishment. However, he just wanted to find an old man. Since he had brought him here, he didn't have much time to pay attention to this guy's words. "All right, call him in." The merchant boss chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I'll definitely be satisfied. Although it took a lot of time, Auntie hasn't seen anyone for a long time, so it took some time to dress up. Come, Auntie Golden Flower." Momo watched as the middle-aged businessman walked in with an auntie. Luckily, he wasn't scared to death at first glance. Her face, which was like an old tree bark, was smeared with bright red blush on both sides of her face. Her shriveled lips were also smeared with bright red lipstick. Her white hair was coiled up with a small yellow flower. It should have just been plucked. The auntie was wearing an old-fashioned chong sam, but it couldn't hide her bloated figure. In short, this auntie was holding a silk handkerchief in her hand as she leisurely walked over. The shop owner closed the door with a smile. "Have fun. Don't worry. No one will disturb you." Momo moved his lips. His hearing was actually very good. At this moment, even though the middle-aged merchant had already closed the door and left, he could still vaguely hear his muttering voice. "I don't really understand these city dwellers. How can they eat such heavy flavors? You've eaten too many delicacies, and now you want to chew on some pigskin cream?" Looking at this auntie taking the initiative to sit beside him, throwing out a wink that could cause 10,000 damage, and lightly bumping into him with her body, Momo, who had a martial arts dream and was polishing his heroic spirit, suddenly shivered. He already knew what the shopkeeper had misunderstood. The aunt's eyes lit up as she grabbed Momo's hand, giggling. "Such a young man, how old are you? Where did this monster come from? I'll take you in." Momo, the successor of the Taoist master of Mount Longhu, had a profound power flowing in his body like a galloping alpaca. There seemed to be the faint sound of wind and thunder in the air. However, this auntie had long been polished by the passage of time, and her ears were no longer as sensitive as when she was young. She had no idea that she was in the middle of a storm. The auntie stood up and smiled. Her small mouth, which had long been reduced to only her gums, opened and said, "Little brother, it's getting late. Let's play early. Be gentle when you take me in." Momo took a deep breath. His reason was on the verge of collapse. He stretched out his hand and poked the woman's forehead with force as he chanted an incantation. Only then did the aunt stop. Looking down, Momo emitted an awe-inspiring aura like a stone statue worshipped in an old temple. His eyes flashed with golden lightning as he shouted in a low voice. That auntie trembled slightly, her heart pounding. Then, she looked at Momo in awe. "Listen. I'm the successor of the Taoist master of Mount Longhu. I'm here to get rid of the evil spirits. I'm only looking for you because I want to know more about the monsters in the sea. You better show some respect." The aunt's heart was beating fast. Looking at Momo's awe-inspiring righteousness, she knelt down at once. She didn't know what a high-tech civilization was, but she had heard about monsters and gods since she was young. She didn't worship the gods every day, so she felt she had met a living immortal. "Ah, great immortal, great immortal. This old woman doesn't know great immortal. I'm sorry for offending you." Momo sat down, pinching his fingers into the shape of a sword, pointing at her. "This Taoist master wants to ask you, do you know what happened to the sea monsters dozens of years ago?" The aunt hurriedly nodded. I know. I'll never forget that for the rest of my life." Tell me about it in detail. Momo shouted again, using a mysterious Taoist technique to shock the other's mind. Don't hide anything, otherwise there will be a bloody disaster. I know. I know. The auntie trembled and stood up without hesitation. She lowered her head and said, That was more than 40 years ago. Over 40 years ago, a horrible thing happened in Louis Village. Since then, the entire Louis Village was in chaos. Everyone was in a panic, hiding in their own rooms, rarely coming out. The auntie sighed and said, I still remember that day. Like last night, there was a sudden rainstorm. The boat on the shore was overturned at once. Suddenly, a huge clap of thunder came from the sky and happened to land on the cliff. The next stone struck down a huge boulder and rolled into the sea. This is the Hear the Sea cliff. Louis Yun pointed at the cliff in front. Her voice was like an oriole's. It sounded along with the wind under the influence of the girl's unique vitality. This mountain road was built 10 years ago for tourism development. When we were little, we couldn't get there without half a day. Driving along the small road built by the mountain road, Luo Qiu looked at the exquisite edge and asked with interest, Why does this cliff seem to be missing a corner? Louis Yun said, I heard that a long time ago there was a thunderbolt here and it was split open at once. Split? Ren Xiling gave a start. Louis Yun nodded. At this moment Li Zi suddenly exclaimed, Look, is there someone standing on the top of the cliff? Chapter 219. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. 40 years ago, a horrible thing happened in Louis Village. But it wasn't about the lightning striking the Chao Cliff. Love go little say net. Chu because it was just a beginning for the people in Louis Village. From then on, there was an old man living alone, then a strong young man, and then a child. A strange disease started to spread in this closed fishing village. Strange disease? What kind of disease? Momo frowned. Even though a few decades had passed, the auntie still had a terrified expression on her face when she thought about it. She trembled as she said, That's not a strange illness. It's the devil's curse. Yes, it's a curse. I saw it with my own eyes. One of my sisters. So horrible. So horrible. They're not human beings. They're monsters. Quiet. Momo scolded. A golden light flashed on his fingertip, and he pointed at the middle of the aunt's eyebrows again. The auntie calmed down a little, but she still had a panicked expression on her face. She widened her eyes. At first it was the hands, then the feet. In the beginning, what grew out were antlers. Then, they became densely packed and hard. Finally, it was like corals at the bottom of the sea. His arms, legs, they've all turned into corals. The aunt turned back, pointing at a corner of the room with her trembling finger. That day, I saw it when I came in. She was hiding here. She hid behind the door, shrinking her body. She looked at me, frightened and panicked. I was so scared that I almost fell down on the ground. I ran out. Momo didn't speak. The aunt paused for a while before continuing, It's the punishment of the sea god. Old immortal Huang said that we were disrespectful to the sea god, so we were punished. Who's old immortal Huang? Momo asked suddenly. The aunt said, She's the old immortal Huang. She's very efficacious. She can do divination and invite the dead. The children in the village are just 1 month old. If they're scared, they'll invite her to shout the alarm. Momo sneered in his heart, Old immortal Huang? Old fraud Huang? A few decades ago, those who pretended to be gods and deceived ghosts in the backward villages were not the true disciples of any Taoist sections. Some of them had learned some superficial knowledge from somewhere, and some of them were just tricks to deceive others. What happened after that? The aunt glanced at Momo with hesitation. But looking at his serious eyes, she didn't dare to keep anything from him. She said in a low voice, Old Fairy Huang said that there is only one way to appease the sea god, that is to return the wife that the sea god likes to the sea god. Otherwise, the entire Louis village will be cursed and become motionless corals. What's with the sea god's wife? Momo didn't understand. Love go little say, Netku the ant said, since ancient times, people in Louis village don't marry outsiders. However, a few years before that, a fisherman married an outsider. I don't know where that woman came from. I heard that she was rescued by a fisherman at the beach. The ant paused. Old Immortal Huang said that the woman was supposed to marry into the sea, but she didn't arrive. It turned out that she was taken home, married and had a baby. The sea god was furious when he knew that. So he offended our Louis village. Then you sacrificed the woman to the sea god? Momo frowned. The ant nodded, saying in a low voice, just at the place where the Hear the Sea cliff was struck by thunder. That day the entire village came. We tied the woman up, did a ritual, and then threw her down. Bastard. Ridiculous. Momo patted heavily on the table, snorting, you guys are disregarding human life. He took a deep breath, looking at the ant who didn't dare to talk, snorting, then? Everyone in the village was cured? Only then did the ant submissively say. Later, Immortal Huang sent people to gather all the people who were cursed and sent them into the sea as dowry. But from then on, the people in the village never had this kind of problem again. Everyone was cured. Momo narrowed his eyes, pondering for a while before asking, then, what happened to the old witch? The auntie said, later, some soldiers came to the village and took her away. They said that they wanted to break the seal and build the letters. They said that they wanted to break the 4 olds, stupid, ignorant, muddle-headed. After saying 3 sentences, Momo snorted and patted on the ant's forehead. After she fainted, he heaved a heavy sigh and left this place. In recent years, a new secretary was sent here to develop Louis Village into a vacation place. The Hear the Sea cliff was also developed into a tourist spot. A guardrail was built here, and a stone tablet was set up, engraved with the legend that the Hear the Sea cliff was struck by lightning. Lizzie found Louis Hai sitting on the guardrail at the top of the cliff, tottering as if he would fall down at any time. Louis Yun was scared out of her wits. Ren Xiling ran all the way, and it didn't take long for the red mini-clubman to reach the top. Louis Yun rushed out of the car at once. There were a lot of beer cans scattered where Louis Hai was sitting. A bicycle beside him had fallen down, probably because of the strong wind. Dad, don't do stupid things. Louis Yun's eyes turned red. She ran to Louis Hai's side and grabbed his arm. Luckily, Louis Hai didn't intend to resist. LV Hai looked at Louis Yun with drowsy eyes. He recognized Louis Yun after a while. Yun, you're here? Haha. Come on, drink with Dad, haha. Dad, you come down first. Why should I come down? It's good here. Look at the beautiful scenery. Look at the sea, look at the cool wind. Louis Hai might have stayed here for a whole night. His body was wet from the rain and hadn't dried up yet. This guy might have been cold for a whole night. His lips were pale. Ren Xiling glanced at Luochio, winking at him. Luochio nodded. The two of them walked behind Louis Hai, grabbing his shoulder and pulling him down from the guardrail. Louis Hai was still in a daze. He crawled on the ground, trying to grab a beer can on the ground. Suddenly, Louis Hai turned around like a madman, shaking his head, pointing his finger and yelling, "What do you want to do? You guys! You devils! What do you want to do? Isn't it enough that you threw my mother down? Come on! Throw us down too! Come on! You bastards! Come on! Come on!" He burst into tears. Chapter 220. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Louis Hai was drunk. After a while, he fell down on the ground, seemingly falling asleep. A love go little say W. Churen Xiling touched his forehead, frowning. You have a high fever. I'm afraid you've been in the rain all night. Little girl, where's the hospital in your village? Louis Yun hurriedly answered, There's no hospital, but a small clinic. Anything will do. Ren Xiling hurriedly arranged. Boy, you and you wait here. I'll pick you up after sending him to the clinic. Luochio said, No need, let's walk back. It's not too far. Renziling didn't say much, just nodded. Okay, I'll call you later. Luocha watched the car leave. There was no one on Hear the Sea cliff at this moment. It was early in the morning. Without the incident just now, it could make people feel relaxed and happy. Luocha's fingers moved slightly. Those scattered beer cans and garbage nearby flew up in an orderly manner, flying into the trash bin next to a pavilion for tourists to rest. Luocha walked to the stone tablet that recorded the history of Hear the Sea cliff, carefully reading the record on it, saying, "Was it really struck by lightning?" Yuyi looked at the environment on the cliff top, then flicked her hair that was blown by the wind, saying indifferently, "I'm afraid it's because the environment here is in the position of the wind. The sea is very humid. The rocks on the cliff have been loosened after years of wind and rain." Miss Maid pointed to the edge of the cliff and said, "Usually, thunder is accompanied by a storm. I think the thunder happened when the rock was about to loosen." Luocha nodded. He also had the same idea. He walked to the edge of the railing and poked his head out to look down. Below the vertical cliff, there were raging waves and uneven reef. If a person fell from here, it would be more or less the same, right? No wonder Luoyun looked so frightened. Did he just say that his mother was thrown down from here? Luocha frowned. Yuyi nodded and said, "Yes, he did say something like that. And it seems like it wasn't just some drunken nonsense. As for that kind of anger, he must have experienced something personally." Luocha suddenly said, "I want to take a look at the village over there." The small clinic in the village was opened more than 20 years ago by a young man who had returned from studying medicine in the city. The medical equipment was naturally old, and some had even been phased out, but it was obviously well maintained. It could be seen that the doctors here cherished these things very much. From a young man to a white-haired man, the doctor was no longer young, but he gave people a reassuring feeling. He looked at Luoyun with a smile. "It's nothing serious. He'll be fine after a few days of infusion and taking some medicine after the fever subsides. Your father's body is good, he'll get better soon. But don't drink too much. You take care of him here, I'll go out." "Thank you, doctor," Luoyun said gratefully. Seeing that Luoyhai was fine, Renziling and Lizzie also felt reassured. At this time, looking at the little girl's better face, Sub-editor Ren's professional gossiping spirit came up again. She looked at the little girl, squinting her eyes and asking, "By the way, your father said he threw someone down, what's that about?" Luoyun gave a start. She shook her head, "I don't know. I thought it was my father's drunken nonsense." Renziling turned her eyes suddenly saying, "Your father said Mom, that's your grandma, right? By the way, I haven't seen your grandma?" Luoyun said, "Neither have I. I heard from my father that my grandma passed away when he was very young. I've asked about it several times, but my father didn't mention it. Grandpa didn't mention it either, but my mom did." She looked at the door of the ward quietly, as if she was afraid that someone was hiding there. She said cautiously, she was killed by the people in the village." The little girl plucked up her courage, gritting her teeth. "Sister Ren, in fact, I've always wanted to know what happened to my grandma. But I couldn't find it. I asked some classmates, they also asked about it at home, but their families didn't tell me. I want to know." Renziling said, "You want me to help you investigate?" The little girl nodded seriously, "Yes. Sister Ren, you're a reporter, you must have better methods than me. I've always saved some pocket money, some more than 1,000. "No need." Renziling shook her head. The little girl said disappointedly, "It's still too little." Renziling laughed, touching the little girl's head. "I may not be able to find anything. After all, you haven't found anything for so many years. But, if you really find something, you can treat me to a seafood feast when we get back." "Really?" The little girl was overjoyed. Renziling nodded. "I'll take a stroll outside. I'll come back to see if your father has woken up. If not, I'll drive you back." "Okay." Rather than calling it a village, It would be better to say that it was gradually developing into a township. Basically, there were 2 or 3-story self-built buildings. What used to be a small fishing village had now become a street full of small seafood restaurants. Naturally, there were many small hotels. Lucio saw a place that looked like a bar, but it wasn't open yet. This place was different from Louis High's lonely resort. They could meet some tourists on the way. Maybe it was because the summer vacation had just arrived. Some young people had already met each other and planned to enjoy the summer from here. Boss Luo strolled around the small stalls on the street. "Young man, do you want to stay in the hotel? We're very safe here. We only have one road service. You know." The middle-aged businessman with a mouth full of yellow teeth called out with a smile at this moment. Lucio glanced at the back of this guy. It was a medium-sized reconstructed hotel. "Let me tell you, our service is very good. Just now, a young man came. He was very happy." Lucio smiled. "Really? How happy?" The businessman walked over and whispered in Luocio's ear. "Bro, I'm telling you. Don't tell me I'm the one who said it to you. Heh, that young man just now found himself an old woman who had lost her teeth. Now, he's having fun." The club boss, who had seen a lot of things, gave a start, thinking that people's desires were really varied and so on. He shook his head. His interest ended here. "Sorry, I'm just strolling around," Lucio said. Seeing this young man was about to leave, the boss became anxious, hurriedly holding his hand. "Hey, young man, don't get me wrong, it's not like this. It's just a special request from that customer. I just want to tell you that I can find her here, no matter what you want." "What's the matter?" Seeing that her master was being pulled by someone, the servant girl, who was looking at the local trinkets at a small stall, walked over. The boss couldn't move his eyes away, thinking, where did this woman come from? She's so beautiful in the entire Louis village. "Nothing, let's go." Lucio shook his head. Yuyi nodded, walking to Luocio's side. The boss was speechless, wasn't he? If there was such a woman beside him, he wouldn't be interested in other women. Fine, a business deal is gone just like that. At this moment, a gorgeously dressed woman came out of the inn. She grabbed the innkeeper's ear and shouted, "You little bastard, are you here to make fun of me? What kind of customer did you invite? You're trying to act all mysterious and frighten me." He ran away. "What? Concubine? He ran away?" The boss gave a start. The woman pulled the boss's ear hard, saying, "Isn't it? I fell asleep in an instant. I don't know what that guy did to me. He asked me a lot of questions, but I didn't know what I said in a daze. Tell me, did you meet a liar?" The boss said, "No. They've already paid for it." Saying this, the boss opened his pocket, taking out money while saying, "Look, this huge stack of real Grandpa Mao's. Oh my God. Damn it. I'm sure I saw. How was it red money? It was just a bunch of leaves." The woman said with a sharp voice. I said, "That guy must be pretending to be a ghost. I don't know if he used some kind of bewitching potion or something. I'm still in a daze, and my mind is still very uncomfortable. You little bastard, you must have been tricked." "No way." The boss quickly said, "Concubine, did he do anything to you? What did he ask?" "I forgot. I seem to have said something about the old immortal Huang in the village." The woman pinched her forehead. "What? You said that?" The middle-aged boss suddenly stopped talking. He saw that the young man and his female companion hadn't left yet. They were watching the two of them chatting. He immediately lowered his head and pushed the auntie into the hotel, closing the door behind them. Lucio took a step back and looked at the hotel again. Then he turned around and looked at the hawkers on the long street thoughtfully. He suddenly walked in front of a small stall and looked at it curiously. "Young man, do you want to buy an embroidered ball? Buy an embroidered ball and give it to a girl you like. You will get a happy marriage." An old woman was sitting in the stall, weaving new embroidered balls. Lucio squatted down and curiously picked one up. He asked, "Auntie, How much is the embroidered ball? The small one is 5 yuan and the big one is 12 yuan. It's very cheap. I want a small one. Luoqiu smiled and said, By the way, old lady, I want to ask you something. Here. Oh, okay, go ahead. Seeing that the deal was done, the old woman agreed with a smile. Luoqiu said, Do you know the old immortal Huang? Unexpectedly, the old woman's face changed as soon as she heard the name. She didn't say anything. Instead, she grabbed the embroidered ball from Luoqiu's hand and said, I don't want to do business with you. You go, you go. Old lady? However, the old woman quickly tidied up the stall and walked into the alley with her head lowered. Before she left, she looked back and nervously glanced at the alley. Master? Luoqiu muttered, Go and inquire about the old immortal Huang.